Welcome to the first official episode of Dark Side of the Moon. I'm your host, Vincent Green. He's your host, Noel John Toohey. Let's get to it. Noel, we're back, and we're going to continue on the Spider-Fan Family Hour under this new umbrella of Dark Side of the Moon, where we'll discuss, all the superhero movies and all heroes from all different mediums and genres. And this time we said we'll dip back into the Sony created world with Andrew Garfield's led the Amazing Spider-Man from, what year was it from?
2012.
From 2012. 2012 starting, Andrew Garfield, as I mentioned, Martin Sheen, Rhys Ifans, Sally Field, and Emma Stone. Noel, we're back in the world of Spider-Man again, and what did you make of this continuation or, evolution or whatever of Sony's held properties, Spider-Man, Andrew Garfield replacing Tobey Maguire and all the differences and whatnot?
Oh, yeah. Well, I really enjoyed it, but by no means a perfect film. I think this film might be the catalyst for why we're mostly done with origin movies.
Yeah.
And I felt like the slow part of this film was grating on me because I've seen it all before, and it's Spider-Man. He was bit by a radioactive spider. It's one of the most known things in all of comicdom.
Yeah.
Is that
it's like the way Bruce Banner's origin story has been veered away from massively in the last few years. Yeah,
exactly. They just threw Bruce Banner into Avengers with his new, once they moved away from Edward Norton. Yeah. And they just said, we've done it. They know. You know what I mean? Because you think Wolverine origins didn't really work, and but that's to say they didn't get bogged down into too much.
It's everybody knows. Everyone knows Batman's origins. You know what I mean? It's one of those things that's just known. It's like
yes.
It's like the whole great power comes great responsibility. It doesn't even need to be said anymore. It's implied because we all know about it.
Yes, there's not a single person in the world is saying, but how did he get their powers or whatever? Nobody.
So radioactive spider, you say?
Discuss. And how does Bruce Wayne's parents feel about going out at night?
They're dead. Did I have any bearing on him becoming Batman? And his affinity with bats. Is that
you just can't do it. So I do think I do think that was relatively painless. I'm not going to be too down on the film about it, but I because the action sequences in this film I thought were so good. I wish they just kind of got into it.
Yeah.
Just got into it. But yeah, no, I enjoyed this film. This was my third viewing, so I think I just kind of watched it without any, it was just on, and I didn't pay too much attention to it. I just wanted a refresher, and it's really, really enjoyable when you kind of just switch off and watch it. So I have to say I enjoyed it.
Even though they did the origin story, they tried to make it as different as possible as Tobey Maguire Spider-Man.
Yes, they did. They made it different. They grounded it a little bit more, I think. Although he did have a tendency to just basically all but tell everyone.
What's up, I'm Spider-Man? Who are you? It's like, dude, here's your pizza.
He's like, I don't know your name.
I'm Peter Parker. I masquerade as Spider-Man. Dude, come here. I've got a 12-incher. Let's just. I'm talking pizzas, people. But
I just picture here's my card. This just says Peter Parker. Turn it over.
It's like when he orders deliveries online with Domino's. It's like Peter Parker, also known as the Mass Vigilante Spider-Man.
Starbucks. Mocha latte for the friendly neighbor.
Spider-Man? No, it's Spider-Man. It's pronounced Spider-Man.
Or just the webbing comes in.
This fucking guy again.
But no, I really, really enjoyed it, I have to say. But I think, if you just switch off and just enjoy it for what it is, it's very, very enjoyable.
The thing about it as well, it raised expectations that were extremely low after Spider-Man 3. And it's such a tidy movie in a lot of ways,
It was. I actually was thinking today when I was watching it, I think I have touched upon it before in just kind of private conversation, but I thought the Lizard was never somebody that has grown up a Spider-Man fan. I was ever really excited.
Yeah.
I was glad that they said, "All right, here's the roster of what's been done." we have our Green Goblin, we have our Hobgoblin, we have our Venom, and we have whatnot. And they said, right, what with the Lizard? They said, right, we'll go with it. So I understood it, but it turns out he has a really good power set, because they can fight in very similar ways. They're strong, increased endurance, increased athleticism, increased speed, reflexes. And the cool thing about the Lizard is he's almost impossible to put down.
Yeah, that's one thing.
You know what I mean?
Some of the fight scenes are amazing because of his ability to regrow his limbs. You know, I mean, the part with the tail is like, ew, that's gross.
Yeah, and it took him he kind of just strolled up the corridor after losing his tail, and that's how long it took him to grow it back.
Yeah.
So you're talking, so even Spider-Man, it was cool because sometimes I like a film where the bad guy is just stronger.
Yeah. Like a better version of the good guy, pretty much.
Yeah, So I always just think that that's kind of what works. Yeah. And so why I always thought Venom was such a bad guy, executed terribly. Yeah. That's why I always thought Venom was a bad guy. He was just an enhanced Spider-Man. Even his spider sense didn't work on. But I thought that he was extremely cool. Bad guy. Yeah.
It's kind of like
beyond my expectations.
Sorry to cut across, but it's kind of like in the Flash or in the Arrow. When the bad guy is just the inverse of the good guy, the show is usually at its strongest. Reverse Flash and Arrow, or Deathstroke in Green Arrow, and Reverse Flash in the Flash.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's when the two shows were at strongest, when you had is it Eobard?
You need to be tactical. You're not allowed to just John McClane it and just take on a group of terrorists and just take them on. You have to actually be tactical. And even I always quite like the idea is, and it's how the Lizard gets away the first time, is that Spider-Man chooses to save a child.
Yeah.
Over pursue him. Now the Lizard's formula hadn't been quite worked out at the time, so he was actually losing his powers.
Stay off bridges in New York, people.
Yeah, but Spider-Man went and did what a hero does, and I love when the bad guy has that over the good guy. Yeah. They do it in the Flash TV series. We always we'll just create a hostage situation, or leave a building about to collapse in on top of people, and then just leave.
The very fact that the hero is a hero is always his major weakness, because he has scruples or empathy or whatever. He cares about the citizens of his city or whatever, and that's always going to be his major weakness. Superman's weakness can be kryptonite or whatever, but he's going to always rescue the person, and that's the window that the villain always has to get away. It's kind of one of them tropes where they always throw somebody in a pit of peril or whatever, and then they escape. And that's how you can keep the story moving along and also have them fight without reaching a conclusion to the climax and shit like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So you have to come up with something actually really, really quite clever to stop them. Which this film also did as well. There's a scene later on in the film where he's using liquid nitrogen and stuff like that. Because it's hard to regrow a limb if you're absolutely frozen to a point, whatever, below zero. So, I thought the films flowed quite well. I actually can't really think about anything about the film. It's not even in my top 20 superhero films. But that said, I can't think of anything I actively really dislike about it. There's nothing I just went, oh, I hate that. You know what I mean? Was there anything in the film for you that you just went, oh, the cranes.
Fuck me, I hate the cranes. Fuck you.
I hate them.
Fuck you and your cranes. That's all I'm saying. What, did the Crane Union of New York pay for this movie or something? What the fuck? What I mean? He's a superhuman spider that can swing from building to building. Why does he all of a sudden need the assistance of cranes?
Yeah. It's the police are evacuating. I need to get everyone in sprint. Yeah. It's cool. The police have obviously not evacuated anyone.
Oh, that's the guy that saved my kid. Fuck off.
Yeah. That was there, we were talking about when we did the first Spider-Man with Tobey Maguire, and it's you mess with one of us, you mess with all of us. Again on the bridge.
The New York is one or whatever, isn't that what?
The New York is one kind of thing. Because I even noticed watching that back when the guy whose kid he saved wants to line up the cranes, walks by in a
I knew you mentioned that. I was waiting for it.
Yeah, and it's just Scotty, we're going to be working some overtime. And,
oh man,
the cheese factor. There was definitely an awful lot of cheese in it.
But
even unforgivable at some points. I suppose the cheese is
as you said though, before one of the earlier episodes, the Spider-Fan was cheese is kind of unavoidable in superhero movies in a lot of ways because it's part and parcel with the product. That's a lot of peas, people.
Yeah, that's it. And And there's very few heroes that are just dark enough to just kind of get to gloss over that. And even like Christian Bale's Batman didn't get away
Yeah,
with
it's
it.
like Dark Knight Rises. There's a lot of cheese in that
Yeah,
movie as well.
there's so much, having a cup of coffee at Alfred's favorite spot.
Oh yeah, Batman retires. Chris Nolan, I don't think you understand your character, sir. You know what I mean? Batman retires when he's dead. Game over.
And it maybe not even that.
You know what I mean? Like, go ahead, explain.
Lazarus Pits.
Actually, good call. Stand corrected. And I've seen all of Green Arrow. I should have known Lazarus Pits are everywhere. It's like, you're dead? Maybe. Until we have it, until we can write you back in, I guess. You know what I mean? Like,
until we can write you back in.
Ancestors. Fuck that.
But no, I have to say the film stood up. I thought it progressed pretty well. I thought it was paced pretty good. I thought it had some cool scenes where he was taking on like the cops or criminals, like when he was looking for the guy who killed Uncle Ben, and then I thought it had. Let me think. I think 3 big showdowns, 4 actually. I think with the lizard. I thought the one in the sewer was done really, really well. I liked when he was sitting on the webbings and he was waiting for feeling the vibrations. I thought that was done really, really well. And of course, he left the camera behind with property of Peter Parker on it because he just cannot.
It's exactly how I'd be found out was a superhero.
Well, there's one thing. There's the basketball scene where he's taking on Flash Thompson, and he jumps like basically 8 foot in the air and slams, like dunks the basketball so hard he breaks the entire backboard, and he's supposed to be the nerd guy. And then at another point he gets the way worse. He gets a football thrown to him, and he throws it back so quick that it bends the goalpost. Now he didn't even throw it the way he should. He didn't throw it like a spiral. Yeah. He just literally caught it and threw it away, and he bent the goalpost.
In reality, if that had happened in America, the rest of the movie would just be team scouts and boosters just trying to be signing them. You know what I mean? It's like, dude, you know what I mean? I'm trying to study. Come sign for our team. The rest of it would be like Jerry Maguire.
I actually read a Superman comic, and it was just Clark Kent trying to figure himself out. He's a teenager, maybe 20, and so he just tries this, that, and the other, and tries football. Of course, he just like walks from one end of the field to the other for a touchdown because he's literally Superman, and the guy just walks up to him and he just says, "How much do you want?" So that's it. That's all you need now. Is just a numbers game. Like, how much do you want?
Do you think when you look back at this movie, like nearly 10 years later, that it's clear to see Marvel's influence on Sony and the style of this movie and the technology and the way it's portrayed and whatnot?
Yeah, and I think even just it was a little bit more. I think it was more clever in the cinematography of it. How we moved between the buildings was kind of a smoother kind of transition to it as well. And I think the scene, I think Marvel raised the bar because let me think. I think we had Avengers at this stage, didn't we? We had Avengers 1.
Yeah, I think Avengers 1 came out in 2011. I think.
Yeah, I think it knew what it was up against, and this is like the rising tide raises all boats. This is what it took to survive at the time. And I thought some of the scenes were just so well shot. Some slow-mo scenes. The special effects were really, really good. And, it went first-person view a couple of times during the swinging. And I thought that was, really well handled. But, I thought it was definitely. How could you not, though? How could you not be looking across the road at Marvel and thinking to yourself, right, we need to up our game.
And this was Sony's opening salvo, if you will, for an expanded universe of their own. They wanted their Spider-Verse that they tried. This was supposed to be the building blocks for a Sinister Six movie, and there was so much on the play here. And in comparison to maybe just I think we spoke about this a while back, but maybe because our expectations were so low for Spider-Man 3, this is why this movie was greeted so positively, because we weren't expecting anything from it. And even though it is corny at times or cheesy or whatever the fuck you want to call it, but it is a very tidy movie. The pacing was very similar to a Spider-Man 1 or Spider-Man 2. It flowed by. It built up the villain enough. You know what I mean? It wasn't just 4 or 5 villains. That was just kind of thrown in like a muddled mess. Literally you had the singular villain returned. And it kind of shared a lot of the similar tone with the earlier Sam Raimi movies and shit like that. You know what I mean? But and at the same time, it incorporated the new aesthetics that Marvel were putting through, like the way that, as I touched on a second ago, the way they portray technology and shit, with the kind of holograms, like the 3D holographic images and shit like that, like the kind of,
Yeah,
and even later on we see, like, not to jump too far ahead, but even later on we see in the post credit scene, which is a hallmark of the Marvel movies, you know what I mean? And like you see like a lot of influences, and I think Sony knew they had to make this movie work, or they weren't going to get too many more chances at it. And I think
yes,
time proved them to be correct. You know,
because that was the property that they had. Is it Fox that has X Men?
yeah, and Fantastic Four.
Excuse me, Fantastic Four. So they had Spider-Man. So they wanted obviously they needed to get this right so they could turn Spider-Man into something that can go up against the Avengers, which has so many individuals that could take on the Spider-Man universe, like Captain America or Iron Man, or it's definitely the Hulk. And so they knew, yeah, no, you're absolutely right. They approached it cautiously. Money was obviously no object. They definitely had massive set pieces, but they knew that Spider-Man has such a rich kind of vein to tap of bad guys, and especially some anti-heroes that you kind of turn into kind of good guys, as we're seeing now with Morbius. Morbius, is that right?
Yeah, Michael Morbius will be played by
And,
Jared Leto.
and Venom. But obviously they did. I would have felt very sorry for the people who worked on the first film if they weren't the same people that worked on the second film, because that literally, they laid the groundwork, I think, so well. Just to expand on it. Spider-Man exists now. So sort of technologies that can alter the human being on a genetic scale exists now.
Yeah.
Use it, expand on it, build on it. Don't get too comic. Don't get too cartoonish.
Yeah.
Just try and keep it grounded. It's a very thin. It's a very, very thin line to walk. But the first one walked it, and then the second one shut the bed.
Yeah. Yeah, which we'll touch upon next week. But yeah, the second one really did shit the bed. Like, and when you have like Jamie Foxx in a movie and you don't take advantage of him, that's your fault.
At all.
You know what I mean? Like,
you take somebody with this raw charisma, and Jamie Foxx, and I thought like the whole thing was that he was going to go, like the 80s thing where the nerdy girl shows up at the party and she lets her hair down and she's attractive, even though she was attractive the entire time. But like that, then everyone sees it. I thought it was going to be Jamie Foxx had the charisma, the charm, everything. He just needed something to give him that little boost, like superpowers.
Yeah.
And then he was still this like insecure dweeb of a man. So yeah, I thought the Lizard was great. I actually thought he was really good, and mainly because not only was he becoming a lizard, he's clearly his rationalization and moral compass was also entering the realm of lizard thinking.
Yeah.
It was just survival and pragmatism over anything else.
And this movie, in a sense, is like kind of like two origin stories, because you have the Spider-Man origin story and you also have the lizard origin story. And like, so I'll ask you this kind of question back to back. What did you think of both origin stories, the new take on Spider-Man's and the new take on the lizards, and how Spider-Man was involved in his creation and stuff like that?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Because first off, I don't think Tobey Maguire Spider-Man did a very good job of playing on how intelligent Spider-Man actually is. He's supposed to be like the fourth, maybe fifth most intelligent person in the MCU, which, considering you have like Reed Richards and Tony Stark and things like that, is actually still a very, very high bar. So having him actually develop his own webbing and have him involved in massive scientific discoveries, yeah, I thought it actually touched on his, Spider-Man outwitting his enemies was always a big thing with him, because he was taking on Rhino and guys who were stronger than him. So yeah, I thought they touched upon that well. I was delighted to see it. The kind of like he was responsible for Ben Parker. He's responsible for this. Spider-Man always trying to clean up his own message. Is a big part
very
of
like Batman in a lot of ways.
Very like Batman in that sense. So the same. Anytime I see them use Batman's detective skills or his tactical thinking, I'm always really happy. That's really what he offers the team. And Spider-Man is actually supposed to be a genius. That's why he was on this. That's why he was in the lab.
Do you think the difference in the portrayal of Spider-Man's geekiness or whatever is a difference in how people of intellectuality or whatever are seen in day-to-day world. Like back in the day, like the nerd was a nearly negative trope in movies. But
Yeah, no, it
when you
was.
look at
Yeah,
it now, and we're living in the world of technology, software, social media, the Mark Zuckerbergs, your Jeff Bezos, you know, your fucking the
yeah.
dude from Twitter, Jack Dorsey. You got all these like tech.
The rise of the nerd,
You know what I
absolutely.
mean? And
Yeah.
do you think that's why they kind of give him like he's a cool nerd?
But see, I think that's what. Yeah, exactly. Because, and I don't even think it's like clever writing. That's what a nerd is in 2012,
Yeah,
and that's still what a nerd is now. As in, they used to have like Revenge of the Nerds or something. If you go back far
yeah.
enough, the nerd was
Or
had a
weird science or
very weird
something.
dress, awkward in the body, and braces and big glasses and a wheezy nasally
Yeah,
voice and stuff. They did everything they could to make them as absolutely
feeble.
feeble and completely uncharismatic. And now they're just literally dudes who maybe don't play sports and are more
Yeah,
intelligent,
and billionaires.
but
Yeah.
they've got good sense of humors. They're good people. They've got good moral compass, good grounding, and so he did play that quite well. As in, you liked him and you were rooting for him, and it wasn't like how did he get the girl? Yeah, of course he was. He's a modern nerd, and I don't think you're ever going to see the nerds that we grew up with again.
Yeah, because
I just, I think that's
yeah,
past.
because movies are you want them to mirror somewhat reality and
Yeah,
perception of intellectual people or people that are technologically inclined is like we see them in a better light than what they were seen in the 80s, early 90s through to the 2000s,
oh god,
early
yeah.
2000s. And
Because even the jocks, you could say as well, because they're not always meatheads.
yeah, like
And,
even like cause even in Flash and this has a lot of redeeming qualities because even though he was a dickhead at the start, it was obvious that like later on that maybe when he's seen Peter had experienced some loss, maybe he had experienced some loss in his life, and he understood
yeah,
that that's why Peter was acting out, and maybe the reason he was acting out was a similar reason to Peter or some shit, like you know what I mean, and maybe that's why he's seen him like as a kindred spirit, and that's why they became friends later on, that kind of way, like so. Like even though
yeah.
he was the meathead, jock or whatever, and even he still had the layer to see that, like, oh, he's acting out. That kind of looks like the way I acted out, and his uncle just died. Maybe putting two and two together, maybe Flash experienced some sort of loss or whatever, and that's why he was acting out as well or some shit.
I didn't get whiplash with any of the characters either, did you? As in, like Gwen, Peter, sorry, what was the name? The captain. They
Dennis
all, they
Leary,
all, yeah. Even when they were going back and forward in like, I like Spider-Man, I hate Spider-Man, I'm an angry kid, I'm actually grounded, I'm trying to help people. It did feel like the character development was moving smoothly
yeah,
enough. It feels like they were changing to the environment around
yeah,
them, to what they were experiencing and what they were going through. Flash is a good example. Peter is a good example. Obviously, I think they handled him really well. Um, I hate when you're watching a film and suddenly you get whiplash and you're thinking, why is this person nice all of a
yeah,
sudden? Was it because somebody scalded him for 30
yeah,
seconds?
exactly.
Because that dude's 40 and a serial killer. You know what I mean?
So you like the way they handled the new origin story with Peter and like
I think they did. I think they said right. Yeah, it just felt like they put a bit of work into it.
yeah, and they built it nicely. And
Um,
they beefed up Uncle Ben with Martin Sheen playing him, and
yeah,
they beefed up Uncle Aunt May with Sally Field playing her, and like we kind of something we touched on. I think in maybe the first episode of Spider Fan where we were like, I think I called for it, you called for it. We were talking about how Uncle Ben and Aunt May should have had more. There should have been better actors in the roles, and I think that's what we got here. And like his relationship was
yeah.
much more grounded. And I think even MCU, when you look at Marvel, when they cast like someone like Marissa Tomei as Aunt May, like cool Aunt May or whatever, you know what I mean? That's what people kind of
Mm,
call her. It's like you need to give like someone. These are the people that are supposed to be his guiding light or whatever. The ones that make
yeah,
him a good guy, not a villain. And like the
yeah.
influence of Uncle Ben, Martin Sheen plays that. Nobody gives an inspirational speech like Martin Sheen. You know what I mean?
No,
Like, but
that bitch did West Wing. He's not going to be
yeah,
topped.
what did you think? Something we spoke about a while back, but what do you think? Like, did Martin Sheen overshadow the part of Ben Parker, and is there a problem with having too many big names in a film like this?
No, actually, see, I don't know, Martin. You know what? I just like Martin Sheen so
Yeah,
much that I just liked him in the role. And the thing about kind of, I think, caretakers as well is like all Aunt May and Uncle Ben, all they did in the original Spider-Man movie, Sam Raimi's movie, was kind of maybe feel a little bit of disappointment, but it was just love, and they only wanted what's
Yeah,
best, and they were just kind of gentle old people. This one it had Sally Fields and Ben, and they actually had like a lot to live for. They were vibrant. They made fun of each other. He was making fun of her cooking, and she was making fun of him for being lazy. The kind of way people actually
yeah,
are, and they get angry with you
yeah,
too. As in the people, the thing about being a good parent is that you can't always be their
yeah,
friend
exactly.
because their friends will tell them everything they want to do is a good idea, and you need to say no. And even if they get pissy with you, it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
No. And they did that. Sally Fields got angry with him, got upset with him, cried at him for not sharing secrets with her, like got frustrated with him, confronted him. And Uncle Ben did
he
the
was
same. So
terrified
I
of
do
him
think
not
that
fulfilling his potential, wasn't he?
exactly, yeah, and that's what people who love you, I really do. So I think that mirrored reality more. I think they tried to go for a very 60s comic idealistic,
Yeah,
like, oh, like poor gentle Aunt May, she still bakes her own bread,
yeah.
and don't get me wrong, like again,
Like
I'd like to point out
people that are moving kind of slowly in the world that's growing faster and faster, kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like,
that is exactly it. That's it on the nose, and the show, it was great. It was a great medium to show the immaturity of
yeah,
Peter, and it was also a great medium to show the growth. At near the end of the film, it's cheesy but
yeah.
forgivable. He comes home and he's still got like
Oh
bruised
yeah, I
here,
loved it. I
scratched
actually
here,
love the
and he
scene.
but he has the angst.
Yeah, that's the thing you do, though, isn't it? To prove, like, that's the
Yeah,
little thing you would do to try to prove to someone, I want to improve as our relationship. Like me and
yeah,
you both in long term relationships, you know, like sometimes that if you don't see the eye to eye with your missus, sometimes the littlest gesture to show that you're willing to change your mind or to improve, or you know what I mean, to be like a better person or a better boyfriend or whatever. And sometimes the littlest gesture goes the longest way. And
yeah.
it's I actually really enjoyed that scene because I was watching. I was like, "That's exactly what I would do if I was arguing with my
Mm,
mother or my aunt or whatever, whoever's taking care of me, and I was out doing this." It's like you'd be like on your way home, you're like, "Oh fuck, I'm gonna get them eggs." You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
that's what you would do, though, isn't it? Like,
Because earlier, it's like she was like, "Where have you been? Do you remember the eggs?" He's like, "Well, go get them
yeah,
now."
exactly. Yeah, being a bitch
I
about
mean,
it. You know what I mean?
being a real bitch about it. I think they handled him as well because they met. Obviously, you have to be rooting for him, and even if you set up that a kid can be in a lot of
Yeah,
pain, you can actually forgive them a lot.
yeah,
So you don't need to be afraid to kind of show them being flawed.
yeah.
I think if a kid just shows up and they're like problem child or something, they're just snotty, horrible kids, then that's all there is to it. But if somebody shows up and they've lost a parent in a tragic car
Do
accident
you
or something like
do
that,
you
there's a
think?
lot of
Do you
forgiveness.
think? Just it jumped into my head there. Just I don't know why, maybe because we were talking about the Flash earlier. Do you think Andrew Garfield's portrayal of Peter Parker influenced Grant Gustin's portrayal of Barry Allen? When you look at the two of them side by side, just super quickly in your mind.
You know what? Like, just like my reaction is yes,
Yeah.
and I never thought
Neither
about
have I until there now, and I don't know why. Just the mannerisms, the way he carries himself, the way he reacts to loss, the way he deals with his villains. It's like he knows there's always a grey area. You know what I mean? Like
it.
I think
Yeah,
there is a
yeah.
lot of similarities there. Like maybe
That's a real good point. I like more than let's just say if we line the three Spider-Men up,
yeah,
um, and it's Maguire, Garfield, and Holland, and I said to you, Flash, you go Garfield, definitely.
yeah, 100%. I would treat him 100%.
Kind of like, especially even just a tall, slender build, like a good-looking
Just
dude,
he
but
would have
not
been a
like
great Barry
not
Allen, wouldn't
so
he?
buff. Not yeah,
He would
exactly.
have been.
Not so buff that he kind of has that like like they said like what they did with McKellen for Magneto. Magneto's powers are the complete and total control of magnetism. So he didn't need to be the big beefy
Yeah,
character he is in the comics. He's not the Hulk.
yeah,
So you could give him to somebody who has
yeah.
gravitas, and
Make him
so this is what they
Shakespearean
did.
almost.
They broke the mold and they didn't like have a He-Man kind of Spider-Man, which is so much you needed, and it was exactly the same with the Flash. And yeah, absolutely, there was a nerdiness to them, there's an intelligence to
Mm.
them, there's a sensitivity to them, and also maybe
And
they mess up every now and
and they
again as
have
well.
which is obviously not unique to them as superheroes, but they've extremely massive personal loss with Barry Allen's spoiler alert, I guess. Barry Allen's mother, being killed, and Peter Parker is spoiler alert again. I don't know, but Ben Parker being killed and
Yeah.
shit. But like, yeah, looking at the two of them side by side, maybe Grant Gustin's portrayal of Barry Allen was definitely maybe was influenced by Andrew Garfield's portrayal of Peter Parker. Um,
I think if you got a job like that, like let's just say you're an actor, you're in your early 20s, and you get the call that the audition came back, you're going to be the Flash. I think I'd probably end up going on the binge and all
yeah,
binges of superhero movies of younger generation superheroes. Obviously, maybe not Captain America, who's supposed to be a World War II soldier, a man of a bygone era,
yeah,
or anything like that, or the Hulk, because your whole thing is your anger and blah blah blah. I think something like Spider-Man would be something that I'd
yeah.
watch
Because there's not a
and
lot
go,
of the Flash. I
yes,
know there was that TV series back in the day, but
that's all there
yeah, there's
was.
not a lot of the Flash. Like
That's all there was. The DC animated universe is quite expansive. There's something to watch there, but no, not a character that you can watch or mannerisms or something. But yeah, I do. I see a correlation.
um,
I do definitely see a correlation.
and did you like the way instead of the radioactive spider that was like this, technologically enhanced spider, that they kind of veered into they were leaning constantly into the whole techno era that we're living in, so
Yes,
did you like that aspect of that?
I did. I did. Again, it spoke to the intelligence. This is what I was saying earlier about Maguire, Spider-Man. He was kind of like
Yeah,
hapless. It was kind of like Reeves Clark Kent.
yeah, exactly. We
He was
drew a
just
lot of
like,
comparisons between Superman and Spider-Man when we spoke
oh
about.
my god, yeah. Like, because and Maguire Spider-Man could like catch a bus and he could stop a train as he actually
Yeah,
did, pull an entire train. But he probably couldn't use a revolving door without getting stuck in it.
yeah,
You know what I mean? So they had that kind of hapless thing, and he was goofy and he was a bit of a loser. They kind of purposely made him like he was always late for work because and he was. But Tobey Maguire was the kind of he used the technology around him, designed his own suit
you mean
to
Andrew Garfield?
Andrew Garfield, my apologies, to design his own suit, to design his own weapon, most importantly. Even at one point, he showed he's after working an antiseptic painkiller because he takes a shot in the leg. So yeah, no, I loved it. I love somebody. Um, it's I love somebody who can actually think outside the box, like use the human traits that they're given and use that to enhance the obviously super hero traits that they've
Yeah,
been
good
given.
point.
Like Captain America is a leader because he's been in the shit.
Yeah.
Like he was been in the shit with good ordinary men who have been in the shit,
Mm.
and that is obviously made him a part of who he is. He just happens to be a super soldier, but the optimum word isn't super. The optimum word is soldier, and I do like that. I hate when they're just suddenly become extremely idealized kind of characters that doesn't really feel like there's anything to them. Peter Parker was a nerd with a bright scientific future ahead of
Yeah,
him. That's who he was when he got bit by a
yeah,
spider. So he said, right, I'm going to use the skills that I've been given to enhance the skills that I've just been
yeah,
given.
exactly.
one,
Yeah,
one by God and nature and one by a spider.
yeah, it's good. It's a really good fucking point. But like, yeah, I'm the same as you. It's like I do like it's like when they have their natural talents, as you put it, used to enhance their superhero talents. Like, you know what I mean? Or because like it's like with Captain America, it wasn't the serum that made him a special person. It just enhanced the special that was already within his person.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Because he was a special
yeah.
person, like when he chose himself on the grenade and stuff. And
I was about to say that's when they knew it was him.
yeah, exactly. It's like that line, you have to give it to a good man, not a good soldier. I think, yeah, I can't
Yes,
remember the doctor's name. The German doctor said it, in First
and
Avenger, and like, so like that's the thing as well. Like, and that's what it always happens, and that's what draws the line between superheroes and villains. When you get the power, it's just going to enhance what you already were beforehand. You know
yeah,
what I mean? Deep down, like, and that's why villains are villains and superheroes are superheroes. It's not really like
yeah. That's it. It's just it's a very evolved version of just putting a gun in someone's
yeah,
hand
and see what to do with it, pretty much.
and just seeing what
Yeah,
they
do
do
they
with it.
protect the
Yeah.
people
So
or do they turn it on them?
yeah, and it's exactly the same thing because all it is kind of it was cool because it made the serum or whatever. It made it seem like a tool.
Yeah,
It is what it is, and it's what you choose to do with it. But obviously, it's what you choose to do on a gut level,
yeah.
on the level of who you really, really are. Like, which is what I loved about the first Avenger. Absolutely loved it. Um, but yeah, I took back to Garfield. I wanted to ask you, what did you think of the Doctor? His whole ethos, lost arm, kind of working with cross species
Mm.
genetics. trying to kind of gain back what he's lost and also maybe give something to the world. The Puritan who loses his
Yeah,
way.
I know it's a age old trope or whatever. We touched on it. Man, doctor gets lost in his technology. We touched on Polly Snatchers with the Fly, and we touched on Spider Fan. But like, I think the way the number one, I loved how Peter Parker was actually responsible for the creation of the lizard.
Yeah,
Number two, some of the strongest scenes in the whole movie where Reese Ifans was in them. Where you know what I mean, like the part where he's thinking about using like I think he says something to Peter like a human trial start next week or something, jokingly. And then there's the
yeah,
scene where he's standing beside a mirror and he puts
love that
it's one
scene.
of the best scenes in all superhero movies. Like it's like where he puts his hand up to the mirror and the hand that the arm that he has, and it reflects and it looks like because it's the reverse because it's a mirror, it looks like he has two arms, and you can understand straight away what his motives are. And I think like
Yeah,
when you deal with a superhero movie, it can be very black and white in terms of morality. But like I think the motives of the villain need to be clear, so we can decide whether or not we agree with him, disagree with him, whether he's right to think this way. Can we understand why he thinks this way? And I think when you look at someone like that's an amputee that originally just wanted to cure people like him and himself and make everyone, whole again. And when he's presented with the opportunity to do this, when he sees the earlier results with the lab rats and so on, like I think you can clearly say, look, and this is a villain. I understand his motives. If I was in his place, I'd probably do the same thing. And he's just a guy that got lost not just through his technology, but he got lost through his impatience and the impatience of the people that were pressuring him, like the guy that represented Norman Osborn and stuff like that. And it's just
yeah. That was the other thing, wasn't it? It was that like the corporate, the seedy corporate underbelly of funding research.
yeah. And that was your man. It was uh, played by Ifran Khan. I think he's is he the guy from uh
I recognize his face, but I could not for the life of me tell you something else he was in.
I, yeah, he's from Life of Pi, I think, in Jurassic
Was
World.
he in Life of Pi?
Yeah, yeah. I think he pass away recently.
Oh no, I'm really. Oh, did he? I mean, oh, actually, you know what? At the time of this filming, I'd like to take to shout out to
Holy shit! Yeah,
Aunt Polly.
sorry, who? Oh shit! Yeah, Helen McCrory, I think is her name. What's her name? Sorry.
Oh, God, what an actress! What a scene stealer!
Yeah,
I mean, she should have been locked up for the amount of scenes that she stole.
yeah, that was a big loss, and but like yeah, Ifran Khan, yeah, he passed away last year too. He was from also the Jurassic World movies, Slumdog Millionaire, like, and I'm pretty sure Life of Pi as well. But yeah, he's a big loss, and so is Helen Curry, R.I.P. Fuck yeah, like,
Yeah, no, my thoughts with them. I really mean that sincerely. That she was a terrific actress. I was especially a fan of hers.
um, but it's hard to segue after that. But like, so yeah, like just to drift back onto like I understood the motives of the villain. I enjoyed the portrayal of the villain. He did a great job of humanizing him and give us a great understanding of why he did what he did and how it got away from him. You know what I mean? So that's what I
Yes.
liked about this part of the story.
This is what's so great about Spider-Man is the widespread of like you have everything that runs the gambit from somebody like the Lizard who gets lost in his research, which happens in this real world, but they put it on like
Jekyll and
literally a
Hyde.
Marvel stage. Jekyll and Hyde, and then you have somebody all the way to Carnage,
Yeah,
who is like so amazingly one dimensional. Like he's so unapologetically one dimensional that it
is his
works.
name Cletus Clay?
Oh God,
Cletus
Cletus,
Clay is it?
yeah, and but this obviously becoming a reptile and having a reptilian brain, he started. He was great. He didn't just get lost in his research. He literally got lost in the recesses of his like his lesser brain
Yeah,
was coming to the surface. And ultimately, like there was, it's always good when there's no bad guy, or at least nobody that realizes that they are the bad guy.
yeah,
Because that's the scariest thing I think in human nature is that when when the Normandy beach being stormed and so many people were dying. Nobody there thought they were the bad guys.
Yeah, exactly.
Like nobody there thought we're the bad guys.
It's the kind of like,
that's terrifying to me.
is it like Barry Pepper? Someone touches on it and Saving Private Ryan. It's like, if we're praying to God, who are they praying to, or whatever? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
if we think God's on our side, who do they think's on their side? You know what I mean? Like, whatever.
yeah,
Like,
that's exactly it. Exactly it. So yeah, I did, and I thought the kind of when I was watching it, I started to think like, does he have a point? As in if he's talking just purely thinking pragmatically, if you could eliminate disease, if you could eliminate disability,
yeah,
if you could eliminate pain to at least some degree, if you could obviously increase the physical capacity, the longevity of the species, would that be such a bad thing? And I think ultimately what it comes down to is that you don't get to make that decision.
yeah.
That's why he was the bad guy to me.
Yeah.
Is that you simply don't get to make that decision.
Well,
that's it.
It's a good decision in theory, but the ramifications.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, absolutely. Like, of course, so much could go wrong. But sometimes you're presented with, like, it's good. These things somebody presents you with, would you rather, or what would you do in the scenario? And the fact of the matter is, unfortunately, there's no tidy answer.
Yeah.
You'd be like, I think you'd be crazy if you did what he did, but I also think you'd be crazy if you didn't stop for 1 minute and just think about it.
Yeah. Oh, I think though so you'd be crazy not to try it. If you're an amputee and then you see this like technology that he believes, he doesn't like, he gets lost in the promise of what the technology holds, and instead of getting like, he should be looking at the results. You know what I mean? Like, where he's just like, he's like, oh, I need my arm back. You know what I mean? And anyone that looks at that can understand, like, if you were to lose your arm, you would do anything to get it back. Not just like a prosthetic limb. We're talking about an actual new arm growing from scratch. You know what I mean? Like,
the first time he tries the serum on himself and he grows the arm, I didn't spot this the other 2 times. It's a very small thing though, is that he rips the kind of skin off, like the kind of lizard scale, and it's a hand, kind of very white, pale, kind of doesn't have any fingernails or anything, but it's a hand all the same, and he's moving it, and then he puts it underneath the light bulb, and he touches it, and he scalds himself a tiny bit touching the bulb.
Yeah, because
and he laughs. Yeah, and he laughs because he can feel that.
Yeah.
Like, this phantom limb is back, and he can actually feel it. And it must be something that people who've gone through that sort of pain can understand only too well, or people who've never had it, or people who've just never had a limb due to something maybe congenital, could just like, wow, I've dreamed of that.
Yeah.
I've dreamed of that every day.
Yeah.
And I think I don't claim to understand that. Of course, I don't understand.
Yeah.
But like on a human level, you could assume the appeal of it. And then they kind of did a scene following that, and it's reminiscent of Defoe's Goblin, where his insanity starts talking to him. And I don't know if it was his lizard brain talking with his civilian brain, but when he's in the sewer and he's running trials and talking, it's like literally like a voice in the sewers with him, telling him what he needs to do.
Yeah.
And that's the Jekyll and Hyde. That's the quite literal Jekyll and Hyde moment, where the 2 worlds are colliding, and the devil you have a devil on your shoulder, but you don't have an angel.
Yeah.
And you're losing yourself, and it made him sympathetic throughout, which I thought, again, I think that's just good storytelling, because it would have been easier just to make the bad guy the bad guy. William Dafoe was a bad guy.
Yeah.
The Goblin was killing people, and there wasn't really much he said, but there was something to the lizard. I never wanted to see him in the film, so I think that's why I'm so happy with it, because I like when I have low expectations and prove it wrong, or I like when I'm very certain about something and I'm proven wrong.
Yeah.
Because it's just good storytelling, and you have to recognize it.
And it goes to show again the strength and depth of Spider-Man's rogues gallery, where like you touched on it.
The best. It's the best. Mm. I defy you to tell me. Even the only one you can come out with is Batman.
And
Batman has an
go deep on Batman.
Go deep on Batman.
Actually wait there, just to be fair to you, make a Sinister Six of Batman villains.
Oh wow, okay, that's fair. Obviously, you'd have to have Joker.
Yeah.
The Muscle would probably be Solomon Grundy.
Or Bane.
No, the Muscle would be Bane, because he's got the intelligence as well, and that makes him a better character. You'd have Slade. You'd have Deathstroke.
Yeah. Mr. Freeze.
He would be Mr. Freeze, because he's a genius. And what are we up to now? Is that 4
I
or
think that's
5?
four. Who did you say
I
first?
think
Did you say Joker?
Joker, Bane, Deathstroke, Mister Freeze, Penguin because he's the underworld
Yeah.
boss. Like Joker's got a gang, but Penguin's
Do you
organized
think
crime.
Penguin be
Like,
kind of like the Amanda Waller?
oh God,
You
yeah,
know what I mean? Like,
absolutely, yeah. The results guy, like
yeah,
the one who, yeah, absolutely. Scratch my back and I won't kill you.
yeah.
And God, like there's a few now, but who would I finish it off with? Lex Luthor popped into my head because that's their Legion of Doom, but he's obviously not Batman's bad guy. So I think I might lean in on maybe Professor Pig or yeah, he's just this guy who's obsessed with body augmentation, so it's kind of gross.
He's in Gotham.
Scarecrow.
Yeah, Scarecrow. Cillian Murphy's portrayed him as brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's his first name? Something Crane, isn't it?
They had a tendency to give them names that would be a little bit on the nose for what they would later become, like Edward Nigma.
Yeah,
was Riddler. I can't think of it, but yeah, but that would be my rogues gallery of Batman. But Batman's the only one who could compare. That Spider-Man has an absolutely fantastic role, but I feel like all of Spider-Man's villains are really, really well designed to fight Spider-Man.
Yeah,
not a good power set to actually take him on. Yeah, you have Kraven, absolutely. You have Kraven, Lizard, Venom, Goblin, Vulture. He could fight them all in like really, really expansive settings because they can all cover so much ground and cause so much destruction. So I think Spider-Man wins for me, and they knew that, and they were building towards it. And I think the first stone that they laid for the foundation was excellent, especially because the second one should have been better because a lot of the work had been done.
It looked like a trilogy was coming easily, don't it?
Exactly, and they knew Garfield works as a Spider-Man. The special effects look good.
Yeah.
The world, the police, New York City has accepted him, and now we can just have fun with it. And it should have been the step up that Spider-Man 2 Maguire was. It was a big step up, but it just wasn't. It didn't have the heart. But that first one, I'd give it a solid 7 out of 10.
Yeah,
maybe 7.5 out of
10. Dr. Jonathan Crane is Scarecrow's.
Jonathan Crane, yeah.
I checked it up. I'm not going to lie. But I'm the same way. Look, this movie had a lot of promise. Like the way Spider-Man's origin story, even though it was kind of like repetitive in a sense, because we knew what was going to happen. The way they dealt with that was pretty good. It flowed nicely. Some interesting new elements. The way Uncle Ben died was kind of stupid. The whole interaction with the convenience store guy was so.
We never touched upon that.
We can talk about that. What do you think of that? Like, do you think it was a bit like made Peter Parker look like such a small, petty person?
Yes.
In comparison to, we all know about the whole thing where he goes to the wrestling thing and he gets jibbed. Yeah, after that, you can be pissed off. Like, I just fought a dude. You know what I mean? Like, and I was like, you wanted me to have my milk.
He gets ripped off. I wouldn't have helped the dude rip me off. I wouldn't be worried if somebody ripped him off. So I kind of got that. But this one, one way I like it as well, because when I was a kid, if I got in really, really bad humor, you would have that I'm miserable, so everyone else needs to be miserable in maturity.
Yeah.
And that's something you need to kind of exercise yourself of. And I think he was in that phase. He was about to he had to grow up quite quick when he lost his parents, but obviously he still at the same time didn't finish the process.
Yeah.
And then losing Uncle Ben, he had to grow up pretty much straight away. And even then, again, it was a process. So it just showed that he was a hero at heart, but he was still a complicated kid.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a silly scene. It wasn't one of the better scenes.
Yeah, so in comparison to Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, did you prefer? I know that's very true to the source material in comparison to this, but I know we touched on it, but do you think the way Ben Parker's death scene was handled in Sam Raimi's Spider-Man in comparison to this movie, Mark Webb, I think, directed it?
I'd have to tip the cap to Sam Raimi for again more true to the original narrative, but it was more fleshed out.
Yeah.
With Ben Parker, he falls out with Peter in Martin Sheen's Ben Parker. He falls out with Peter. Peter runs away, and Ben Parker goes looking for him and gets shot. And that was fine. Just got on with it. I suppose it was a bit cheesy. But I eventually you do kind of want the film to just kind of get on with it. But I have to
It's
say,
like enough origin story already.
yeah, yeah. But I do remember when when the thief is running by Peter Parker, and obviously he's got the strength of 10 men at the stage
Yeah,
and a speed to match, so he could have taken that guy down as easily. But it was a case of not doing it and then realizing that no matter what, even if you're peeved off, you always have to do the right thing. I think Sam Raimi's version did an excellent take on that.
yeah.
But I think I still preferred Martin Sheen's Uncle Ben.
Oh, of course, Martin Sheen in the Tobey Maguire movie would have made it so much better. You know what I mean?
Oh my God!
He just really named. He's like, not my policy, man. Do you remember that? It's like, so petty, dude. It's milk. Relax. You know what I mean? Like, just relax. Like,
Yeah.
you know, you can shoot web if you want to steal milk. Just do it. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you know, don't be a bitch about it. Like, trip the guy up or something. You know what I mean? You know, fuck's sake, I can.
Your man throws him the milk. The robber throws
it's
him
like,
the milk.
you know, it's like he's my best buddy. I'm going to let him away with armed robbery. No, actually, no. Well, it's not armed robbery, but like I'm going to let him away with robbery or whatever because he doesn't actually use a gun because he just sneakily empties out the till when your man's not looking, isn't it?
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
And he bolts. And then he kills Uncle Ben.
Yeah.
All they knew was, like, I think they were writing this film and said, right, Uncle Ben has to die.
It's like we're going to do a lot of work in making you like him, and then we're just going to kill him off.
Yeah.
So they have that much.
They did. It's kind of exactly what they did.
Yeah.
God, Martin Sheen's such a good actor. Though. He was what they needed him to be. He was a father figure. He was ultimately, you know, he didn't take any nonsense, any shit, but his heart was in the right place, and he only wanted what was best for him. And they got all of those notes, and then
I think in if you look at the Man of Steel or the Snyderverse, you know, iteration of Superman and his Aunt Martha, Diane Lane's portrayal of Martha, I think, has a lot of Sally Field in it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. They kind of realize that you don't have to go for the very stereotypical, very fragile, older nursing home age kind of parent, and it's not. These people are still extremely, extremely, you know, capable of taking care of themselves. They're just literally older. They're in their 50s and they're in their 60s, as people are, and have absolutely full and active lives. So yeah, absolutely, and I like it that way. I think it should be that way. You know, if you were to say it's true to the source material, you know, Clark Kent's parents would have been a little slice of Americana, good, hard-working folk who, you know, just, you know, they work on the farm, they pay their taxes, you know, little slice of heaven that they call their own. Don't bother nobody.
Yeah, it's like the real American dream, 1950s kind of era.
It's exactly what it was. You know, it's exactly what it was.
This movie,
the All-American and all that.
But this movie is kind of like a lot about relationships and shit. Like, you know, we spoke about his relationship with Aunt May, Uncle Ben, with Kirk Connors, and like when you look at, like, at the time, Andrew Garfield was in an actual real life relationship with Emma Stone, who portrayed Gwen Stacy, who's the love interest in this instead of Mary Jane Watson, and then their attempt of a story just to make it different enough. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What did you think of the chemistry they had, and did you think it was as good as Tobey Maguire, Kirsten Dunst, or?
Oh no, it was way better because Tobey Maguire was like, just so obsessed. With Kirsten Dunst, it was just so like, we get it kind of thing.
And she was such a plot device. That's all they used her.
Yeah, she was such a plot device. She was just, you know, she was at any, like Emma Stone actually was just a normal, was supposed to be 17.
She's so charismatic though, isn't she?
Yeah, that's it. She's charismatic. She's a good actress. She's very good. It's very funny scenes where, you know, Spider-Man's in her bedroom, and the captain is trying to catch Spider-Man's at the door. So she goes out and she goes, cramps. Oh my God, so bad. It's just a nightmare situation. I'm just like, yeah. That's like, I mean, yeah, you that's a good way to get your dad away.
It's like, it's like the woman's ultimate weapon, how to make a man uncomfortable.
It's a woman's ultimate weapon because, you're just backing away. Just backing away. And, so I thought she was, but also like she, you know, she takes, it would have all gone to shit if it wasn't for her. She managed to steal the vial of whatever the antidote to what the lizard was going for. When when Spider-Man's fighting him in the school, he has him dead to rights, and she hits him in the back of the head with a trophy. Doesn't do much because the lizard is such a big power.
But she doesn't get kidnapped once in this movie.
And she doesn't get kidnapped once. In fact, there's what I thought was a real cool scene is that she's hiding from the lizard, but he obviously literally spells her out. And and she has kind of a makeshift flamethrower.
Yeah.
And the lizard literally just opens it up, and he holds his hand up, and his hand takes the burn. He takes the device thing that he needs, and he just looks at her and kind of goes, just leaves, because he's not actually trying to kill anybody. He knows now if he leaves her there, it's like, she's not going to be able to scale a building and fight him on his own. Spider-Man's an actual threat, but she was still like, she was very fearless, and that's what the whole hero thing is supposed to be.
Yeah.
That you're fearless, and if you happen to have superpowers, then you use them for the betterment of people. But she was a kick-ass kind of female kind of protagonist in it, and not a
damsel in distress.
Well, that's the thing. I think Mary Jane Watson was literally one step above being tied to a railway track by, I'm
going to kill her, see?
A goblin with like an evil mustache, like, because absolute damsel in distress. All three films, they all kidnapped.
Ridiculous. Like,
they all.
That's something we touched upon. That like when you look at in more modern movies, that like, I know it's not a new thing. We Ellen Ripley, Sarah Connor, but female protagonists and even female side characters in superhero movies, love interest and whatnot, they're not just used as plot devices, meat puppets to be thrown around by villains, to be left in precarious places, to be saved. They actually assist, help, and enhance the superhero and the character. A lot of the times nowadays, you see the love interest will find out the secret identity earlier on, so they can be more like, in tune, more like, ingratiated or whatever in the life of the superhero and the alter ego. You know what I mean? Like, so I think you don't see like, it's not like in this, like, when Stacy finds out about halfway marks, Peter Parker Spider-Man. You know what I mean? So
about the high, at the dinner, like, he does this whole kind of La La Land thing where he kind of hits her with the webbing and spins her into his arms. But she finds out about halfway through, and everyone in the school is stupid, so none of them find out.
Kirsten Dunst doesn't find out the end of Spider-Man 2, pretty much.
Oh, she kind of knows at the end of Spider-Man 1 the kiss.
Oh yeah, the kiss at the funeral, yeah.
And she does this whole like,
yeah.
Because oh god, she touches her own lips and she's like, I think that's Spider. But she was not
so web-like.
Emma Stone is a beautiful woman, and he's the kid in school, and she's smart and she's in the sciences as well, so there's kind of common ground.
Yeah,
and she's funny, so there's absolutely no reason why he wouldn't like her.
Yeah.
So there's no reason he wouldn't want to go on a date with her, or go for dinner with her, or spend time with her, study with her, all that kind of jazz. So that was just teenager shit.
Yeah.
That's just like really, really basic teenager shit, and that's the way it should be. And a relationship develops. But Peter Parker was so obsessed and doughy-eyed about Mary Jane Watson the entire time, and she was just so like, "Do you love me, Peter Parker?" And I hated it. The third film somehow was worse than the first two combined in that way as well. But yeah, no, if you want me to compare one to the other, then there's absolutely no doubt.
I liked 100%. I like the fact that she was attracted to Peter Parker before he ever became Spider-Man as well.
Yes.
You know what I mean? There was something there already between them, and you know what I mean? In him becoming Spider-Man just kind of gave him the bravery to go forward with her. But she always liked him before that, you know what I mean? So it wasn't like the way Mary Jane only started noticing Peter Parker in the Tobey Maguire movies after he became Spider-Man, because he had this renewed confidence or whatever. Gwen Stacy always was attracted to him, and it was actually his renewed confidence to give him the balls pretty much to make the move or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, that wasn't a turn. Like, so I just think it's more natural that I think that she was attracted to him all along, and not the fact that because he became an enhanced version of himself, she's suddenly attracted to him. Yeah,
that there was something there to him, and that makes the chemistry between them real. And I don't know, I felt like, again, they didn't bog the story down in it. It just made sense to me.
Yeah.
It was like, why wouldn't they like each other?
Yeah.
If they're both like straight, whatever age, teenagers, hormones. And she's just a nice, grounded, attractive, intelligent woman who invites him to dinner, and you're damn right he's going.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? Of course he's going. So we didn't need like the doughy-eyed, attraction or anything like that.
Yeah, fawning after her or something like.
But the Peter Parker, God, man, because we watched all three of those films not too long ago. It's like really bad.
Yeah.
It's really bad. So yeah, no, I was delighted with it. And if I was to say like Zendaya and Holland and Emma Stone and Garfield and then Dunst and Maguire, I would definitely be right there in the middle with Garfield and Gwen Stacy.
Yeah.
They had stupid kiddie sense of humors, and they had a rapport, and obviously they even had a real life relationship. So maybe that made it a little bit easier for it to bleed into the actual acting.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I was very happy with that. And it's not a love story. Spider-Man's not a love story. It's a story of relationships.
Yeah.
So it didn't like shy away from Sally Fields as Aunt May, and it didn't shy away from Uncle Ben, and it didn't shy away from him kind of trying to stay grounded in his own life, studies, and future, and which he did a bad job of. But like, did a bad job of it, but they touched on the difficulty of it. So yeah, no, I thought it was good. So superhero films shouldn't be love stories.
Yeah.
Like it's not as if it's not as if the world is experiencing a shortage of rom-coms or something. You know what I mean?
It could be an element of the story, but it shouldn't be what the story's about.
Yeah, because the story should be about your life for like a period of time, and obviously relationships of all kind of descriptions are kind of bleed into that. But no, it shouldn't be bogged down in something. It should be the story. Like, the title of the film is Spider-Man, so it should be about Spider-Man.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was. So it definitely gets 10 out of 10 for me on that. It didn't. I never felt a way down the story, and I felt like the females in films were starting to get a bit stronger now. We're less damsel in distress, more Black Widow.
Yeah, exactly.
Now Wonder Woman and what we have today, but at the same time, thought Emma Stone was definitely the best. Yeah, definitely the best of the ladies in the Spider-Man's life for me so far.
Same as in the chemistry she had with Andrew Garfield was obviously natural, as you touched on and we said earlier that like they were going out together at the time and stuff like that, and that obviously was shown across on the screen because like they were very natural together. They had this kind of awkward attraction, and like both of them were kind of nerdy, and both of them were kind of, you know what I mean, like so they played off each other well. And like even though they're the most 26-year-olds, 17-year-olds ever, but they played off each other very well, and like I really enjoyed that aspect of the movie. And it was a lot stronger, and it didn't seem as forced as the Tobey Maguire Kirsten Dunst relationship, because she never seemed like she was interested in Tobey Maguire until he became a much more enhanced version of himself. And in this, it was just like it was a natural attraction that just he just as I said earlier just later developed the confidence to pull the trigger, if you will.
Yeah, like I always thought he was a good-looking guy, but it wasn't until I seen him take on 6 armed robbers barehanded, jumping from building to building. I thought, I think I'm attracted.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, so I agree with you there. I do. I think it will move a bit like kind of towards the end. The idea of this film was that eventually Kirk Connors was so far gone that he felt like he had cured himself. He says to Peter, "I'm getting stronger every day, smarter."
Yeah.
And he said, "I can fix the world, Peter. There's no reason to stop me." And there's actually a good scene I want to just touch on very quickly where he's fighting him in the school. But when he's in the chemistry lab, you think he's just going to tear through because he's brawn, like. But he actually mixes 2 chemicals together and throws it in and creates a kind of explosion or a noxious cloud.
Yeah, I love that because he's still a scientist.
Still a scientist. And then, so I was very, very impressed with that. But I remember thinking, so he wanted to give this to the world. Peter Parker figures out when he gets down to his lair, and then there's a simulation. And for some reason, he'd gone to the trouble of putting the graphic of lizards spreading over New York City like, en masse, because you wouldn't know it. But I thought I moved into the final section. I thought quite smoothly. They have one last battle. Peter almost gets arrested, and they're going to have a showdown where he's going to use Oscorp Tower to as a what's the word I'm looking for, booster signal, basically, to get the
amplifier.
The chemical agent up into the stratosphere at least, and just rain down on New York and turn everyone into lizards.
What do you make of the action set pieces in this? Like earlier on, we had him do battle with the lizard on the bridge, like you talked about a little bit earlier. Then we had him down in the sewers, which you touched upon, where Spider-Man uses the web,
and they're all built like on the bridge. He sees him for the first time. They kind of duke it out, but not much, and he has to save the kid. The second time in the sewer, he straight up has to escape because he's fighting him in his element in the water, in the
he's
sewer.
The most
places where
something we touched upon. Sorry to crush, but isn't he the most spidery of all Spider-Man in his mannerisms and how he hunts and tracks his enemies and stuff?
In the school fighting scene, he wraps up the lizard but literally crawls around him like a spider would its prey. Because, and I've never seen
licks
that
his
done
lips when he sees a
before or
fly
since.
earlier on. So
Yeah, that's right. Actually, he does. And I thought that was I thought he was definitely the most. It was even the scene where he's in the sewer. He's tying his webs together.
Yeah.
Creates an actual kind of webbing of sorts.
Tracking by vibration.
And tracking by vibration, which spiders also do. So I thought he was definitely the most spidery Spider-Man. I have to give credit. The first time he fights him, he touches him on it. Second time he fights him, he tries to escape. Third time he fights him, he survives him.
Yeah.
So it always kind of builds up that Spider-Man's cool, but like face to face, how do you stop him? Because you could break his neck.
Yeah.
And his neck would like the cops put like 95 bullets in him, and actually I think they do kill him for about 10 seconds. I think his regenerative abilities can even bring him back.
What do you think of the scene in the school with the late great Stan Lee? He has the headphones on. It's in like a library, like a book depository or something. And it's like, was he listening to classical music or something?
He's listening to classical music, and there's a real cool. I think the best. It's probably could be my favorite of his cameos because it's very funny that the lizard throws a tail. And it's just about to cream him. Like, it would absolutely wipe him out.
And he's like, he's none the wiser. I love that. Like,
None the wiser. And obviously Spider-Man grabs it with the webbing and it kind of, uses its reverse momentum and he drags it back and hits the lizard.
Yeah.
And Sam Raimi's just absolutely none the wiser. So I thought it was good.
Cool.
That's what I wanted. I wanted a fun. I liked
great variation in the action sequences, wasn't there?
Oh, great variation. None of them were the same. I actually thought the actual set pieces of action were excellent, and I think it was the best power grouping I've seen in a Spider-Man fight, where Spider-Man's just fighting somebody, but he has to be smart. He can't take him on in a brawl. He just can't. Yeah. He's not even necessarily to stop. He needs to trap him.
Yeah.
And I just thought they were excellent. I really did. And building up to the last scene, I remember the first time I watched this, I was excited for like the penultimate scene, the top of the building. You've got the timer because obviously this experiment is going to be completed in T-minus like 10 minutes or whatever.
Yeah.
I thought itself nicely, but the cranes.
The fucking
cranes was unfortunate. So he finds out what the lizard's up to. He calls Gwen and tells her to get out of the lab because he's going back there to get something. Gwen doesn't listen because she's a badass. Yeah. She gets the agent, she sets off the fire, all this kind of stuff that we've touched on a little bit. Sets off the fire alarm, clears the building. But Spider-Man meets the cops. They capture him, sort of. He take off his mask, he breaks the cuffs, he kicks the shit out of him. Then the captain finds out that he's Peter Parker. So it's great because you think you're like a detective of sorts, and you're looking for this one guy, and he's been in your house 3 times.
Well, he's a captain, so he probably wouldn't be doing any street work.
Yeah, but that's
he's on the street a surprising amount in this movie for a captain.
He is on the street a surprising amount.
Which is pretty much an administrative role, as far as I can tell.
Yeah, exactly. He tells Captain Stacy what's going on, and he says, "Right, my daughter, go on, get to him. Don't shoot." And then, like, something that you never see is, a cop shoots. They probably shot
a cop quick on the trigger.
Yeah.
No way. You heard it here first, people. That is a Dark Side of the Moon exclusive.
In these United States. So then he's up, and then I can't remember.
Like any person of color, like they're like red and blue. But as you were saying, so what do you make of this scene where like Spider-Man's escaping, and you touched upon it earlier? I'm not sure if it was before recording or when earlier in the show was like Peter Parker's like, hidden by the shadows, his mask is taken. You were saying you loved that scene where he kind of takes out the cops.
Did. It was just something where he obviously needs to escape, so he uses a combination he uses a really quick combination of the fact that it's like Spider-Man can stick to walls, and Spider-Man is strong, and Spider-Man's agile, and the webs themselves are just like he used his mind, which he would have been able to develop the webs anyway, but obviously he needed his power set to make them work. But he uses his agility and his strength and his intelligence all at once in the scene, where he keeps his head down, breaks the cuffs, kind of spins around a lot so nobody could get a clear bead on him, takes the cops down without hurting any of them greatly. And it's only like eventually, whatever, he gets caught in the sense that he could get out of it if he was willing to be more heavy-handed, but he's, the cops weren't the bad guys.
He shows a lot of restraint at times, doesn't he?
He shows a lot of restraint. So I thought it was just a cool scene, and of course the camera work, like when the camera kind of pans around, closes in, and then he looks up, and there's always that scene. That's the way they set it up, and when it's done well, I think equilibrium.
The reveals were done well in this movie, weren't they?
The reveals were done well, and it set itself up, and you could feel the action coming, and the action never disappointed. So I thought, I really, really thought that. I'd say he had about 6 or 7 action sequences in it.
Before we run into the clothes, what did you make of the scene where Peter Parker reveals that he thinks Kirk Connors may be the giant lizard that's terrorized New York to to Dennis Leary's Captain Stacy? What did you make of that scene?
That was brilliant, because he was saying, you're saying that the Doctor is dressing up as a giant lizard? No. And I love it's kind of like, no, I'm not saying anything that ridiculous. I'm saying that he is a lizard.
Yeah. And I thought that scene was funny too. But just to jump back, so we don't stray too off course. So the last running, what did you make the whole scene with the cranes and Spider-Man?
Yeah, no, I admit the crane thing was definitely these united states of America. The flag kind of in the background, the man lining up all the cranes because Spider-Man needed to clear a shot. I do like it kind of like every film always has this anyone can be a hero kind of thing, and Spider-Man never disappoints in that sense. And this was just like the layman, the everyday man, doing it for these streets. You feel me? And oh god, it was so corny. It was so bad. It was actually shot quite well.
Yeah.
It was shot quite well. You got kind of first person angle of it. I actually thought the physics of the way Spider-Man moved, it wasn't just shooting at the clouds and just kind of always be swinging.
Yeah.
There was short swings, swinging close to buildings. It happened to swing kind of far out because that's the way your momentum is carrying you.
Yeah.
So I thought it actually did that real well. I just thought that the lining up the cranes thing was cheesy. I remember Spider-Man 3 where he's on his way to get this, save Mary Jane.
No way, shock horror.
Yeah, and he literally, I think, again runs by an American flag. It was really, really, really corny. Yeah. But I think, if I have to weigh the pros and cons up, I can take this one on the chin. That was definitely a very corny scene. There's no way around it. I know you hate.
Yeah, I know I do. I hate that scene, but I glossed over because literally all the problems I had with it, you touched on very well there. Now the crane scene leads into the lizard on top of the building. He has his serum that we found out earlier on. Actually, we forgot to mention, but we found out earlier on in one of the scenes that this serum or whatever, a gas, turns people into lizards like him. Because remember, he used it on some cops. And this is his big,
that's right.
And this is his big thing to make everyone like him. So, and as you touched on earlier, he's going to shoot the serum or whatever.
He figures it's actually a good thing to do.
Yeah, in his mind.
In his mind, yeah. And he's too far gone now to be reasoned with. So Peter Parker actually fights him. And there's a cool scene. He gets up to the top of the kind of tower and he swings around and he gets a really good kick in on the chest. And he takes him down. But of course, Lizard just overpowers him again. And I like that. They never. I kind of hate when the good guy suddenly becomes way stronger than the bad guy with no real premise.
It's like when Hulk Hogan used to Hulk out.
When Hulk Hogan Hulk out, when Goku in Dragon Ball Z finds another color his hair can but this didn't have that. And then there was another kind of cheesy scene where he takes off his mask and he goes, "Poor Peter Parker, all alone, no parents, no aunt, no uncle. Boo, not alone."
Dennis Leary, bitches.
Yeah, Dennis Leary. Although, that'd be a fantasy of mine to just have Dennis Leary show up for me in any context. But then he shoots the shit out of him. He shoots him. And Spider-Man covers him in liquid nitrogen. Which Spider-Man grabs and he uses on him, and then they're just shooting the shit out of him. And he goes, "I got this. You go take care of that." And then it was a cool scene actually because he's hand frozen, and then Captain Stacy shoots his hand off with a 12 gauge, and then it just instantly you can just see little fingers sprout. Because you've seen stuff like Wolverine and Deadpool, for example, where generation is kind of their thing. But the speed at which Kirk Connors was regenerating was like nothing at all.
know.
Like, even Deadpool,
X-Men
it took a
Last
couple of
Stand.
days. Oh,
Remember Wolverine's regenerating skin as it's disintegrating off his body.
Yeah, no, that's actually a really good point.
Which is ridiculous. For shame, Brett Ratner. For shame.
Yeah.
Shame. I wish I had the bell. Shame.
But Spider-Man gets up, and it's a cool scene because the lizard escapes and kind of fatally wounds the cop straight away, but then he jumps, and it's got that like 4, 3, 2, and Spider-Man just managed to change the lizard formula with the antidote formula
that Gwen Stacy made.
And that's the thing, like Mary Jane never helped out at all, because she was too busy ovulating, just too busy being a woman, which is just at the time seemed to be such a handicap or something. So it's got that really cool. He's got Spider-Man. You think this is it? He's probably going to, he's thinking, I'll kill him now. I'll actually just kill him and be done with him. But then when the formula kind of touches him, he instantly starts to lose his scales, and obviously he starts to shrink a bit and things like that. And then Spider-Man goes to fall for his death. He's kind of pooped, and he gets caught by Kirk Connors himself, who's obviously instantly, now that his human form is returning, his civilian brain is taken over again. And you realize that it wasn't Kirk Connors, not truly, that something very real had taken over his body and his senses and sensibilities. He wasn't like a classic villain. And he even says the captain, oh God, the captain, and Peter goes to the captain, and he's just kind of going, don't want to see his daughter.
Like, dude, lousy. That scene where Dennis Leary's Captain Stacy's like, it's like, I'm about to die now, but before I do, stay away from my daughter.
Stay away from my daughter, my beautiful, beautiful daughter.
Who smells
really
like strawberries.
Likes you. Yeah, she really likes you. I mean, really likes you.
So like the final scene, Kirk Connors turns back to, or the lizard turns back to Kirk Connors. Captain Stacy dies. We get the mandate from Captain Stacy that he's Peter Parker to stay away from Gwen Stacy. Then we see in the run up, whatever, he breaks his promise because the best promises are the hardest ones to keep, or some bullshit. Which makes, I don't know, very little sense.
It's still comparing it to its predecessor. The end of the first Spider-Man in 2001 was just so fucking dreadful. But Peter doesn't go to the funeral. Peter doesn't do anything. Gwen shows up at the house, and he turns her away, and then she turns around and goes, "He made you promise, didn't he?" And then he just decides it's, after a little, Sally Fields interjects a bit as well, and then he decides, you know what, it's fine. It was only his dying wish.
She's like, "Come on, Forrest, you gotta go and do it."
You gotta.
I think
she goes,
that's where she gets cast as those kind of parts because of Forrest Gump, I think.
Yeah, probably, actually. I only watched what was it called? Cannonball. What was the one with Burt Reynolds where they're running from the cops and they're trying to what are they called? The trilogy with Burt Reynolds and Sally Yates.
That's Smokey and the Bandit, isn't it?
Smokey and the Bandit, that's the one. I remember watching that going, my God, Sally Fields is gorgeous. Like she's kind of the hot, young, crazy kind of girl who's out and about, and then she kind of became quite a grounded character, like Mrs. Doubtfire in Forrest Gump. But she kind of convinces him that people's dying wishes don't mean shit. Fuck those people. And he decides to bravely start seeing the beautiful girl again.
He's like, ooh, what a sacrifice. Like Emma
Stone. Ooh, what a sacrifice.
Cool and gorgeous.
Cool and gorgeous Emma Stone.
Cool and hot at the same time. The woman is so perfect. She's a paradox.
Yeah, she is just a paradox.
But before we go to a break and we come back with the what if segment that we normally do in the second half, and the best and worst of Amazing Spider-Man, I wanted to ask, in comparison to Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man and the Spider-Man trilogy and all that, the suit is always a big thing about the Spider-Man movies. It's something that we like to focus on, the aesthetics of the suit and the mannerisms we touched on earlier of Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man, because it's a Spider-Man movie, not just Peter Parker. and the way it looks, and what you think of the redesign of the suit, what you think of like the way he created the suit, the difference with
Yeah.
no organic webs with the web capsules returning, stuff like this. So what did you make of the changes and the alterations to the Spider-Man aesthetically and the way he was portrayed and all that stuff?
Well, I have absolutely no goddamn idea how Maguire made that suit. They never explained it. He didn't. He was dirt
Yeah.
poor. He had
I made
access to
pictures and they
nothing.
came alive.
Yeah, exactly. That's basically it. Like at least with Garfield, they showed him making webbing,
Yeah.
and they showed him like really like working out the formula equations, all that kind of jazz. It was kind of easier to imagine the suit, but also they even showed him using like stuff that people use in winter sports, stuff that people use when they're deep sea diving.
Yeah.
Like kind of frictionless materials and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So you could tell that he was given an awful lot of thought, and that he was a literal genius, and that he had access to certain things.
It allowed us to show that though, as you touched on there, he's a genius.
Yeah, exactly. So when he showed up with a suit, I was just like, yeah, of course he did.
Yeah.
That dude's got an IQ of maybe 190, 200. Of course he did. There's no problem to him. Like,
Yeah.
So his suit made sense to me, and it was more, I guess it was classic. Sometimes less is more.
Yeah.
Like, I actually love Holland's suit, because they were able to say, "Oh, Iron Man made it," and that's just a blank check.
Tony Stark was such a
anything you
beautiful
want to-
out, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was such a beautiful out. He was just like, oh yeah, twos are wild. Oh, okay, cool. I got like 4 twos. So I have like Spider-Man suit that has like kill mode,
Yeah.
and literal an extra 4 limbs and stuff like that. But Garfield was grounded. It was just, I don't know. It was like the comic book one without the stupid underarm webbing things that I always hate.
Yeah, for the gliding for some reason.
Yeah, for gliding or something. But yeah, no, I liked it. I can't say I loved it, but I did like it. And Maguire's one didn't make sense to me because it was even had this black mesh over it that I'm wondering how he got to look so good and got it on it so right. But I liked it. They kind of just made it what I needed to be.
Yeah.
And like I said, that they walked us through the process so much that I felt like, yeah, of course, that's fine. It was kind of almost a montage of how intelligent he is, how outside the box he's thinking, how much time late into the night he's thinking about these things, how much even though he's extremely capable, he's stretching himself, he's wearing himself out, he's obsessing. So then when people are like that, they can come out with things that are very impressive.
And he drew inspiration from luchador wrestlers and stuff, remember, because he lands on
Yeah.
And what it's a joke I think I said to you before, but this movie is kind of like Peter Parkour. You can see the free running influences and stuff, like,
oh god.
What did you think of like the part where he goes to the roof and he does like that one-handed handstand and then drops himself off the side of a skyscraper?
Oh, that looks so cool.
You have to have a lot of confidence in yourself,
cool. Oh yeah, no, that is so cool. I always wondered if it was a part of the Spider-Man power that you literally just do have less of a human instinct to really great heights.
Yeah, actually, that's a good point. Actually, yeah, you want to climb these things.
You'd want to climb these things. That would occur to you because if you for me, like having like this ability to climb the walls would probably be like abseiling or something. It's like somebody saying to you, "Don't worry, you have these ropes, these safety harnesses, you have these professionals, you have all of this." But I'm still going, yeah, but that's 400 feet. I don't care. Yeah. I'm not doing it. I don't care if I have superpowers. I'm not doing it.
Hey, that's something I always wonder. Like, if I had the ability to fly, would I still be afraid to fly? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
because the heights that you'd go up to would be ridiculous.
I think, my superhero suit would be like 4 pillows taped to the front of me, and I'd fly like 8 feet off the ground.
But so did you prefer the aesthetics of the suit and Andrew Garfield's portrayal of?
I did because it meant I did because I actually thought Maguire's probably looked a lot cooler, but I just like Garfield's one. I see how it came about, and that it just did. Maguire's one took me out of the story a bit. Yeah. Sometimes it's just something that's too much of a red flag.
It looked like it was beyond his capabilities, didn't it?
Exactly, and then you're just kind of going, no, I don't get it. It's like when Hulk kept waking up with pants.
Yeah.
You're just kind of going, no, like that's not what would happen. If your waist size increased from a 26 to 108,
you'd be naked.
Your pants would tear. You'd be naked.
But like, do you want to touch on anything else before we go to the break, or are you happy we covered enough ground?
Oh, I'm happy. I'm happy. We'll jump into the break and be back with these people before they even know it.
All right, cool. So, this is Dark Side of the Moon. I'm your host, Vincent Green. He's your host, Noel John Toohey. We'll be back after the break. And now, word from our sponsors.
We interrupt this program to bring you a special report.
Now the action is more spectacular than ever with Wisecracking Spider-Man.
Who's your favorite web slinger?
Spider-Man action figure. And Zoom and Go Racers. Wisecracking Spider-Man and Spectacular Spider-Man figures and vehicles, each sold separately.
And we're back after the break. I'm your host, Vincent Green. He's your host, Noel John Toohey. This is Dark Side of the Moon. We are talking about the 2012 The Amazing Spider-Man starring Andrew Garfield and whatnot. And in the second half of the show, we like to, take a seat in the director's chair ourselves and decide what we would have changed and what we would have done differently than Mark Webb or the storytellers that were involved in The Amazing Spider-Man. In this segment, we like to call What If. And Noel, what would you have changed if you were the director? What if you were the director, if you will, and how would you have changed, and what would you think could have gone differently in The Amazing Spider-Man Part 1?
Well, obviously, like football, like films, like everything in the world, armchair directing is very easy. I watch UFC with a bag of Cheetos and say I would have finished it with an armbar and all of that kind of thing. But assuming that, let's just say that was my vision, and it was me in the chair all along, and I looked at it and I said, what do I wish I had done different with my own creation? I would have dialed the cheese back a little bit. Maybe not like he's not alone, and not have like a New York strong kind of message, because the action should speak for itself. The characters should speak for themselves. I might have changed the pacing in certain areas, but I do think that a lot of it, knowing the skill set I actually have, I'm thinking I couldn't have made a film this good. I would like to acknowledge that. But I do think, like, again, maybe Uncle Ben's death, I would handle that a bit differently. I think I would have maybe, I might have changed up dynamics of it. But I thought the pacing of it was so good. The only thing I could actually think, because I agree with you, I would have taken the crane scene completely.
For sure.
Because that was about 60% of the cheesiness. So there was other cheesy aspects. I thought like there was kind of silly stuff. So I don't like anything that takes me too far out of the story in my own head. Like, I know it's about a guy who gets bit by spiders, so now he can climb walls and he's strong and stuff.
Checks out.
So I do, I do get that I have to suspend my disbelief. But if I was holding a basketball outstretched in my arm and somebody couldn't physically take it from me, or if I was able to throw a ball so hard that I bent a goalpost, and like they say, like, oh, up in the nosebleed bleachers, well, he actually was. So he was in the back of the bleachers, and he threw the ball with one hand and bent the goalpost. Not even the way you're supposed to throw a ball, just like get out of here. And I would have been like, oh, that guy must be like Spider-Man. What do you think, Coach? Spider-Man? He was like, well,
it's like does anybody know Peter Parker's like super strong lately? And like around the exact same time that this like vigilante on the street is like attacking people, like, you know what I mean? Like, you put two and two together very quickly,
Yeah, I'm surprised he's not like literally kind of has like bags full of Spider-Man clothes labeled Peter Parker.
I'm the same way. Like,
sorry, I do have to say another thing I want to change is I probably would have told everyone I was Spider-Man. Okay, Andrew, remember, the scene is just like, what do you want me to say? And what's the answer?
Aunt May.
Aunt May. What do you want from me, Aunt May? Not I'm Spider-Man.
Hey, Aunt May, can you pass the milk? I'm Spider-Man.
Spider-Man. Yeah. I forgot the eggs. I was too busy being Spider-Man.
Do you think that's what Dennis Leary, Captain Stacy, was like before he died? He's like, this fucking kid is telling everyone he's Spider-Man. He's going to get my daughter killed.
That's what he meant. You're going to make enemies because you can't shut the fuck up about it.
He's like, hey, kid, not a secret identity. It's a secret identity.
It would have been great if, like the scene where Captain's talking and they dangle the bad guy and there's a note on him or something like that. I should have said, just from your friendly neighborhood, Peter Parker, and it just shoots Spider-Man on top of the building going, wait, what did I write on that?
Yeah, stationery from the offices of Peter Parker.
If found, please return to.
Yeah, he has that early Spider-Man suit. He's like, if found, please return to Peter Parker.
Well, like, who did know? Like, all joking aside, who did know that the Lizard knew,
Yeah.
Captain knew,
Yeah.
Gwen
And
Stacy
May
knew,
pretty much knew.
and May figured it out. Yeah, it seems.
Captain
But,
Stacy knew.
Yeah, so is that 3? I feel like there was a 4th.
Every main character
Oh,
knew.
the kid he saved didn't know him.
Oh, yeah.
The kid he saved didn't know him, but he took off his mask and gave it to him. Like, you know?
Hey kid, wear my mask.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? It'll give you power. I like the scene though, the way that even though like the scene is kind of cool where he saves the kid, but you know the fireball, that kid's dead. Like, you know what I mean? That car is a complete fireball. Like, you know what I mean?
That's not how fire in a car works. It doesn't spread.
Yeah.
If it starts from the actual flammable liquid inside the car, it blows up.
Yeah. Yeah, looking back on it, yeah, I'm kind of agreeing with you. Like when I look at what if I would change, like would be the Ben Parker death scene for sure. I would have changed that. I think they could have stayed a little bit more true to the source material by also changing it. I did like the way that they kind of fleshed out his relationship with Uncle Ben, and that may. But at the same time, I don't think it had the payoff that it deserved, because I think the issue with Sam Raimi's Spider-Man is that Uncle Ben, they didn't flesh him out enough, so by the time he died, we weren't as emotionally attached to him as we should have been.
Yeah.
And in this one, we were so emotionally attached to Martin Sheen that when the payoff came, it wasn't as hard-hitting as it should have been because of the corniness of the milk and not my policy, all the shit, which was kind of a play on not my problem, which is the line from the Tobey Maguire movie, which was the line from the comic books, I think. It's the line I know from the cartoon anyway. I don't know if it's comic book, true or whatever, but, I just think the big payoffs in this lacked with the Martin Sheen thing. But I like the reveals and stuff were good, as we touched on earlier, and I liked Kirk Connors, the Lizard, Rhys Ifans' portrayal of him.
Yeah.
I like the way they went back to the singular villain.
Always a singular villain, unless there's a real kind of established cohesion between the two villains, like a common goal.
Like a Sinister Six needs to be a 3-hour Spider-Man movie. There's no
way
of getting around it.
There's no way of getting around it. Like, and also they have to jump straight in. You can't have a Doc Ock origin story as well as a Vulture origin story as well.
Oh no. It has to be the origin stories have to have happened in preceding movies.
Agreed. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So as you said, they can just jump straight in like an Avengers Infinity War where they just start when Thor's in the middle of space and he comes under attack with Thanos because they've done all the building and we're supposed to have seen it all. So I think like when it comes to a Sinister Six or whatever, I think the time comes that like if you want to go more than a singular villain, we're going to have seen maybe 3 or 4 Spider-Man movies.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So I think like with something like Sinister Six, it might even work because it's framed to work. They've been kind of thinking about it and setting it up and establishing the universe. But again, it's too many. Although, like then again, Avengers Endgame really did change the game.
And that was 3 hours.
That was 3 hours. But at the end, you had everyone who's ever graced the screen. It wasn't just. It was Stephen Strange and everyone of the magic.
The on your left scene where Falcon and everyone reappears through the portals is one of the greatest scenes of all time.
Oh yeah, it was absolutely so. It did. It all depends on the handling. But if they could have avoided congestion, honestly, like I think if the multiverse thing happens, that maybe Garfield gets another shot. They just need to treat the second Spider-Man.
He's such a good Spider-Man.
He's a really good Spider-Man.
He really is. Every time I watch this movie, I'm like, geez, he's such a likable actor.
Yeah.
He really is. He's so likable. Even though he's a bit of a dickhead sometimes in this movie, but like he's so much more likable than Tobey Maguire as Peter Parker.
Yeah.
Like so much more likable. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and he gets in his own way sometimes, but we all do that, and he's like, you can really, what you call it with him, you can really like,
relate.
What's the word? Relate. Thank you so much. Like you can really relate to him, what he's going through and the mistakes he makes and the reasons he makes them and stuff like that. And he looks good, like, for lack of a better term, but he looks good in the suit. Like he looks like Spider-Man from the cartoons, whatever, kind of tall, skinny, you know what I mean? And his mannerisms and his movement are so spider-like. And I just thought, like, I can't remember, was it Steve Ditko? I I think it was Steve Ditko that said that when you draw Spider-Man, he tries to never draw him standing still too much. Like it feels that's like it's wasted potential that when you can draw Spider-Man, like he's always in a pose. Like
Yeah,
he's like
true.
crawling on a wall, or he's like, you know what I mean, like something spider-esque about him. Like he's doing something. I think it was Steve Ditko that said that like that it's wasted if he's not like that. And I like this movie a lot when Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man, he shows up and he's like sticking to walls, or you know what I mean, or he's like the way he moves is very spidery,
Yeah.
as we touched upon earlier. And like they take a good advantage that he's not standing around a lot. He's in a lot of action, and the action sequences, that's cool. I think to take advantage of the Spider-Man and his abilities. So I wouldn't have changed that. I would have changed the corniness about the crane scene, of course, as you've heard me complain about to no end. But like, literally, I'm like literally in agreement with you. What I would have changed the Martin Sheen, the Uncle Ben death scene. I would have changed the crane scene, and maybe the fight sequence at the end. Maybe make it a little bit longer. You take out that crane scene, you got 5 or 10 more minutes of a confrontation.
They kind of did establish that Spider-Man can't, like, again, and I stand by it that they've good powers, but like once the lizard gets his hands on you, there's very little you can do. He's got the claws, and
Spider-Man's so resilient, though. You know,
that's the thing. He can take a beat. Well, then again, you know, a claw. I see where he's got the claws, kind of almost Wolverine-esque coming out at one point when he has him in the sewer. You know that he is like literally a machine designed to kill, and there's only so many times you can tangle with him. But I agree with you. He should have, because there was some really, really cool scenes where he was the lizard in the school trying to get down the hallway, and he's hitting it with the web and sticking it to the roof. And that was like that cool Spider-Man thing, like he throws Gwen Stacy out, he hits her with the web, and he sticks the web to the outside of the window. He's actually using webs the way a spider does. And like it could have been a more resilient or something like that. At the same time, it was quite cool. And obviously, maybe there was a longer scene, but it was cut for time. But
I just think you take out that crane sequence and you get a good, maybe instead of Peter is going from the cranes, maybe he's chasing the lizard to the building. Maybe that's what the chase sequence could have been. Like, you know what I mean? Like it could have been like, remember when he's chasing after him originally and he gets shot and then the lizard gets away? I think like if you had a 10-minute chase sequence into a 5-minute fight sequence, that end would have been incredible. Where like the lizard is throwing stuff at him or whatever, and he's ducking and dodging, he's swinging from buildings, and they're fighting on the side of a building, and then the lizard, you know, kicks him away or something, and he crawls up a building. Peter Parker's on the ground or something, you know, Spider-Man, he slings back up to him. They fight. He keeps getting away from him until the point where he gets to the Oscorp building before Peter Parker, and then you have the final fight sequence, and then the whole way through that he was alone, and then the part where it goes, you're not alone resonates more, and then Dennis Leary saves the day, because like, you know what I mean, because he wasn't alone the whole way through that part. You know what I mean, like, because he was supported by all of New York. It resonates more if he feels like he's alone in that moment, and then he gets saved.
Yeah, that's it. They always go for you know, I always think of Always Bet on Black in Passenger 47 or whatever it was with Wesley Snipes, because I don't think 57. I don't think the statement was set up in any way, shape, or form. And he goes, "Oh yeah, one more thing, always bet on black." I was like, "What did that guy say? Wait, how did he say? He didn't set him up for that at all." So it just doesn't.
It doesn't matter. Wesley Snipes wasn't even in the script. Wesley Snipes is probably like, "Always bet on black," and he's like, "Wesley, you want your bookie again?"
Always betting tax, Wesley. Always betting tax.
Jesus.
No, not too soon. No,
too soon.
It's all in the past. It's all in the past. And it's accurate.
And it's accurate.
But yeah, no, of course, there are things you couldn't, especially now, like looking back on it years later, we've seen such an incredible lineup of films that have come out from all different kind of producers and actors and directors and studios. We are at the top of the mountain, kind of looking at films that kind of got us here. And so it's easy to kind of like throw an eye across it. You have a great idea of what works and what doesn't work. And directors now, like Kevin Feige and stuff, is obviously able to take even from inspiration, even from himself. Because now is there 50 superhero films out there? Because we're probably 40 comfortably.
There's 20. I'd say so, because
20 what?
Well, you've got
4, 5 in the Marvel alone.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think it's like 23 movies, including Endgame. So like you're not far off. Like because you're talking about you got Batman trilogy, you got the original Christopher Reeve Superman trilogy, you got the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man trilogy. You know what I mean? Like Blade trilogy. Yeah, there's like 6,000 X-Men movies.
Exactly, way too many bloody X-Men
uh,
movies. So yeah, no. So I do think it's definitely a product of what came before it, and there's definitely a product of what has come from it. And
yeah,
I think if you showed somebody that film and told them that this film got shit canned, it's supposed to be a trilogy, they'd be very surprised. Then you'd explain that there was another film. Yeah,
unfortunately.
this film absolutely deserved a sequel, and I was very disappointed for it. And even when you talk about things you could change, you're kind of being nitpicky. You
Yeah,
know what I mean? Like you're not saying that because like it's not like, oh, I would have got rid of this character altogether. Like if you ask me what I would have changed with the original Spider-Man trilogy, I would have got rid of Mary Jane.
yeah.
Rid. Just
Or just incorporated her much better, like the way Gwen Stacy was incorporated into Peter Parker's life. You
exactly,
know.
exactly, exactly.
And this shows to give Sony some props. They did learn from their
Yeah,
mistakes.
yeah, fair, fair.
You
Yeah.
know, you know, they did really because like Gwen Stacy's a much more meaty character than Mary Jane
Jesus
Watson ever
God, yeah.
was in the trilogy. You know, and it's unfortunate. And they went back instead in high school. They didn't push him through to adulthood really quickly in this. They wanted to go back to his roots. You know what I mean? This is even before he took on the job at the Daily Bugle or anything like that. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's all right,
So
actually.
like it was really like return to the roots of Spider-Man, something we kind of called for. That they shouldn't have aged him through high school so quickly. And this is obviously the MCU looking at him when they cast Tom Holland along with Sony, that they wanted a young Spider-Man who could stay in school long and you can really process the growing period of what it is to change from a teen to an adult
Yeah,
to a man. You know what I mean? All these different
because
things
Holland,
that they,
Holland now is after having 4 or 5 appearances of Spider-Man,
yeah,
include
and his own
and his
trilogy
own
is going to be in
trilogy.
the
So
next year or two.
so by
So
the time like he goes to Daily Bugle, he will have had an actual Spider-Man. He would have so
yeah,
much kind of character to have worked with. So yeah, they were right to do it.
you talk probably about Spider-Man 4 before he enters Daily Bugle, unless he gets an internship in part 3.
I'd reckon that internship in part 3. Like he is growing up at the same time. It's not like they have him stuck in stasis. But
Yeah,
yeah,
but it is different though because not to jump too far ahead to the MCU movies, but like J. Jonah Jameson reappears at the end of Spider-Man Far From Home, and it's like a different role. He's kind of like an Alex Jones type character, it seems, in this world. Like he has his own kind of conspiracy website
that's
or
right. Yeah.
blog or video channel or whatever the fuck. But yeah, so that change should be interesting to see how it impacts Spider-Man's role with the Daily Bugle and stuff. But I enjoyed the fact that we actually saw a little bit about Spider-Man's parents, his actual birth
Yeah,
parents. I like the way because they explain quickly that his father was obviously some sort of genius, so that's where Peter gets his intelligence from, and maybe his mother I think might be a bit of a genius too. So like I think like they did well. They changed enough to make it different enough from the Tobey Maguire movies because there's always that worry when you have a reboot so close to an end of another iteration of it. Are we going to be fed up? Is the market too saturated with one property? Is it going to be different enough that you can get new viewers, retain the same audience? You know what I mean? So like they had to ask a lot of questions. And when we went to the what if, boat was just talking with the crane scene, Martin Sheen's death, like Uncle Ben's death. So it was a really solid movie. Otherwise, really, if you look at it, pacing was good. His relationships and how they developed were pretty naturally done, kind of organic. You know, Reese Ifans, Kirk Connors, well, had a relationship with his father, Richard Parker. So the reason he went and saw him out made sense. You know, and when he came across his work, the fact that he could interpret it is because he's a genius himself. That made sense. You know, his relationship with Gwen Stacy made sense. You know, and his relationship, the friction with Captain Stacy, that also made
yeah.
sense. You know what I mean? So apart from some corny moments and some cheesy moments, it's actually a really solid movie. I think. You know what I mean? So I think like unfortunately the sequel was so bad that it didn't get a third one, and the spin-off for Sinister Six that we talked about a little bit off air with Drew Goddard supposed to direct in was unfortunate. But in the end of the day, we got Tom Holland as Spider-Man and we got Spider-Man in the MCU. So like it's like unfortunately like Andrew Garfield was like his Spider-Man
At his expense, yeah.
yeah,
At his
yeah.
expense.
At his expense, he was nearly like a willing sacrifice to the gods of Spiderdom. You know
Yeah,
what I
you're
mean?
not wrong.
Because his success, Sony would have held onto the rights more firmly than they currently do with the multiverse and whatnot.
Yeah, absolutely. But then again, like there's with the rise of Morbius and stuff like that, uh, they're obviously Sony aren't quite done with the whole thing just yet. So I don't know. The future's an open book. When words like multiverse are getting thrown around,
Yeah.
doors get opened again.
Yeah, exactly. And like you can easily have Venom enter the MCU continuity whilst also keeping his own continuity because of multiverse principles and stuff like that. Because he's from a different world or a different Earth or a different dimension or whatever the fuck.
And I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, I think Sony are obviously they're not going to be Marvel at all. They're not.
So they
dropped the ball.
Can't beat them, join them. That's what they decided to do. It's clever.
It is clever.
You know what I mean? Like
it is clever. Yeah. I mean, a slice of the cake is better than none at all.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? It's like I think Mark Cuban said it on Shark Tank. It's like I'd rather have 20%. I'd rather have 80% of a watermelon than 20% of a grape or 100% of a grape. Fuck, I butchered that. So
it's cool. It's a cool expression. Actually.
Yeah. So pretty much, he says I'd rather have 80% of a watermelon than 100% of a grape because I butchered it the first time. But so like I think that's what Sony are looking at. It's like. We'll cede some of these rights to Marvel, some of these percentages, some of these storylines, creative control, and we'll get 75% of a juggernaut instead of 100% of constantly floundering properties that people lost interest in the way we portray them. And now that the fact that we got the Marvel gleam and people are happy with us, they got some goodwill, and Venom was better received, even though it's not a great movie. And
it's not a great movie.
Yeah,
not a terrible movie.
Yeah,
it's not a great
and
movie.
Michael Morbius, like his story is going to be received more open-mindedly because of
to quote Sheila, she was like, "What the fuck is a Morbius?"
Well, in Michael Morbius, the character's defense, something we should look at more in depth, hopefully when the movie comes out. But like the cartoon series from the 90s, Michael Morbius, I thought was one of the more interesting characters and.
Agreed.
That introduced.
He's actually really well touched upon in the 90s.
Yeah.
A kind of a plasma vampire.
Yeah, and that introduced me to the character Blade himself because Blade was hunting Michael Morbius and stuff like that. For me as a kid growing up, for the Spider-Man lore, he was a very important character, and I'm not sure what his importance was like in the comic books itself. But if you want to jump back to the cartoon from the 90s, I always thought he was a character deserved to be.
Oh, I thought he was actually, but I'm just saying now that people are so hungry for superhero films that you're able to take from, like if going into, let's just say 2010s, Morbius would have been a class E.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like he wasn't the
depth
Joker.
Of Spider-Man's character.
But he wouldn't even have been in the Sinister Six.
Yeah, not even close.
Not even close. And the Sinister Six, I don't think ever really had Venom or Carnage. So he wouldn't. I don't even know if, like, including Kingpin and stuff, I think you would probably have to go down beyond 10.
Yeah, I always thought
Mysterio, Rhino, all these people were kind of.
I always thought Sinister Six were kind of like the top level of the street level villains.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And then
Sandman,
Carnage are nearly
Electro. Stuff like
exactly.
That.
They're all nearly former criminals.
Yeah, that's what they were like in the 60s cartoon. Like, they were robbing banks, stuff like that. They were
exactly. You know what I mean? So there was Venom and Carnage, like your otherworldly threats.
Exactly.
That kind of way.
Yeah.
Like,
so the fact that somebody who's like Spider-Man's, like 14th top arch nemesis, it's amazing what they might be able to do now, because like you said, they actually have the goodwill. They get good actors. If they put out a fancy trailer, they throw money at the wall, and they could stick. Sony could be a part of the future, yes, but obviously they know they're not going to be Marvel. But it kind of brings me back to your 80% of a watermelon, 100% of a grape thing.
Yeah, exactly. Like, so it's smart business by them, like to lean on Marvel and to get the goodwill from their association with the MCU and stuff like that. And like this movie, unfortunately, as we touched on, got a sequel that was really bad, and we'll go into more detail on that next time. But it was just unfortunate because this is actually a pretty decent movie.
This is a pretty decent movie. The next movie, the thing is, what you have to do with what Spider-Man did in the second one, going into Doc Ock with Maguire, was they carried the heart of the first one into the second one. It felt like the same universe. Felt like the same world. The second they dropped me into Spider-Man 2, it didn't feel like the same world. It was a comicalness, almost like Batman and Robin from the 1960s.
You mean Spider-Man 3?
Yeah, well, actually, no, I'm just talking about Spider-Man 2. Sorry, Garfield. Spider-Man 2, Maguire carried the heart of Spider-Man 1, but Spider-Man 2, Garfield, it just felt wrong. I think even from the
Yeah.
opening minutes, it was silly. There's a scene where he's trying to stop these canisters from falling out the back of a van, and he's like, "Whoa, I'm so silly," and he's catching it with his. And it was kind of zany or something,
Yeah.
and then the kind of jumps back and forward with killing Gwen Stacy and all this kind of stuff, and you're kind of going, "No, man." At least the first one had cohesion. It was sectioned. It had the progression of the Lizard, and had the progression of Spider-Man and Stacy and kind of secondary and tertiary characters. Second one just felt like it was just thrown together with a wood chipper.
It tried its best to expand. It's like this. It suffered from a lot of the similar things that Batman versus Superman suffered from, forced expansion into the storylines that were supposed to be more universe building, but instead was counterintuitive because it actually ruined the movie that was supposed to be building out these universes. Because the thing is, with Marvel, they did it one step at a time, but with DC and what Sony tried to do is they tried to do 4 steps in one go.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? 4. It's like we're introducing you to this, we're introducing you to this, to this, to this, and this, and this, all in one movie. And what Marvel did was, we're going to introduce you to this now. We're going to introduce you to this in July. We're going to introduce you to this at the end of the year. And then, like after 6, 7, 8 movies, you're introduced to everything.
Yeah.
At a slow, gradual, organic pace. You feel like it was earned. Feel like it was worth it. And like Spider-Man 2, when we go back, we'll look at it. And I think a lot of the problems with that movie was the forced expansion. They were trying to rush into a Sinister Six movie, into a Venom movie, a Carnage movie, whatever movie they could, because they were, they were floundering and really wanted to hold on to the rights of Spider-Man.
It really shows you Marvel had patience. They had 4 phases.
Yeah.
They planned them out. They executed them, and it worked. And the fact
they respected the audience's patience as well.
The fact that set first these 2 Garfield Spider-Man movies, they made money. But the fact that they didn't decide to go forward, you have to be pretty terrible to just kill something that will make money. Just won't make an awful lot of money, and you've lost the will of the fans, and it's best to just lay down tools and walk away from it. And the first film, it deserves so much more than that.
Yeah, it was unfortunate the way the follow-up turned out, but
we'll talk about it though.
So 100%. Like the waste of Jamie Foxx's Electro and stuff like that was a shame. But so we're kind of both agreed what we would have changed if we were the directors, and what would you say when we go to this last section now? What would you say was your best and worst of the Amazing Spider-Man 2? The Amazing Spider-Man 1 experience.
Best.
What would we start with? Would you want to start with worst or best?
I'll start with best because I have more positive things to. It's an easier question, which speaks to the film. An easier question is, what did I like about it? I liked a lot about it. I think the best was how well they did the Lizard. He was cool. He was formidable. He was virtually unkillable. He was in many ways unstoppable. He had intelligence to go along with it, so he just wasn't some mindless brute that you could just kind of fool into entrapping himself. And the Spider-Man fought like a spider at times. He kind of used his environment to his advantage when he wasn't the stronger of the 2 opponents. So I thought the set pieces, the action pieces, were the strongest element of the film.
Yeah. And for me, my best would be I love the aesthetics of Spider-Man. I love the suit, and I love as you said, the action sequences, the spideriness of the Spider-Man himself. The way he thought flies look appetizing or whatever. He tracked and trapped with using webs, like the vibration and shit like that. And the fucking the way they beefed up the storylines with him and his relationship with Aunt May and Uncle Ben. I really enjoyed that. I thought that's what the first movie was missing with Tobey Maguire. And they obviously thought something similar because that's what they kind of leaned on as well in the second movie. I like the way it gave us a lot of information without ever feeling oversaturated with information. They kind of gave it to you nice and gradually. And then by the time you have all the information, you're prepared for the run to the climax, because you know of all the characters' motivations and what way it's going to play out, that kind of way.
I got you. Yeah, I agree. I do. It was definitely paced better. If I was to say something that was negative about it, is that the dialogue was a bit cheesy at times.
Yeah.
Not even as cheesy as its predecessor, especially not the third one. But it definitely had just kind of a hope springs eternal kind of dialogue that wasn't necessarily, needed.
Yeah, real Americana, heavy Americana.
Yeah, heavy Americana. that guy saved my kid. You work small the time I'm walking here. He even did that swinging here, which was just disgusting. But it was. And again, it's a small complaint, but it just, I don't know, it was unnecessary. It was counterproductive to kind of keeping the little bit of grit. It wasn't a gritty film, but the little bit of grit it had, I think you lose when you kind of get a little bit too cheesy. And
I like the way the fight scenes when the way he came back and he was all broken up and stuff, and had this kind of like street fighting element to it or something,
Yeah,
like underground street.
That's it. Like that was cool. But he's running from the criminals and he falls through the top of an old gym and lands in the ring. I've seen your face. Because of course he's seen your face. He loved letting people see his face. And it did. Like, so it loses that when it kind of has a, like the best example of all time will always be the devil may have my soul, he doesn't have my spirit.
Is that the Punisher?
No, that's not Punisher. Flaming Skull, Ghost Rider.
Oh, Ghost Rider, yeah, Nicolas Cage's Ghost Rider.
Like that was definitely the worst. I if I was an actor and I read that script, I was like, I'm not saying that.
Can't wait till we do the Ghost Rider movies.
God. The second one, at least the second one was just like mindless action. At least I had something to actually watch. That first one was just abysmal. But yeah, the dialogue, that's it. The best was the action and the worst was the dialogue. That'd be my answers if I was just to keep it simple.
Yeah.
What about you? I know you already said.
So pretty much my best would be the action and how the information and the relationships were organically grown and given to us throughout the movie, and I like that. And I thought, the pacing and stuff. But like my worst, obviously, the crane sequence. I hated it. I thought it was totally unnecessary. I thought it actually deprived us of a better showdown with the villain and the hero.
Do you not think the cranes were uplifted?
This fucking guy. No. But and I didn't like, the Ben Parker scene was definitely the weakest for me, the whole movie. I just thought like, they could have easily have Peter fall out with someone in a better scene that's not about milk, and have Ben Parker die because he went for a gun on the ground. Like, because it's stupid. A guy that smart would not go on the ground. I'm going to grab a gun on the ground. You don't live till you're like 60 years old or 70 or whatever he is.
The guy's
in New York City by gun on grabbing
gun. The guy's got 40 years on you and adrenaline.
Yeah.
Like just let the guy go on. Don't be a hero. Just,
Yeah, I just thought that scene could have been done better, and it was one of the stronger parts of Spider-Man 1.
It was.
The one with Tobey Maguire. Because it reminded me so much of the cartoons when I grew up. And it was just very well shot and it was well done. But like in the end of the day, like the weakest part of this movie for me was the Ben Parker scene, the crane scene, and a few really kind of cheesy parts in it that kind of went against the tone of the. It's kind of like it had a serious undertone. A lot this movie had, and then some of the cornier parts kind of went against the overall tone of the movie. But like that's
quite forgivable though, wasn't it? It's quite forgivable. Everything you're talking about. It wasn't anything that made the film into an unforgivable or anything like that. It's just, maybe toned back this, but the action board made it up for it. If I was to give it a star, it'd be 7.5 out of 10. A very strong return on a film for me.
100%. Yeah, 100%. I totally agree with you. 7.5 out of 10. If you're to give it a rating, it would definitely be like in past 7 because it's a solid movie. The things that are wrong with it, you can understand why they went for them. They wanted to get past the Ben Parker death scene. They wanted to make it as different as possible from the Tobey Maguire movie. The crane sequences, they obviously have this thing where they believe that, they should have this kind of United New York moment in these Spider-Man movies because he's such a neighborhood hero that they would unite behind him. And I don't think that scene was necessary. I think it was forced. But as you said, there's such small things in comparison when you break down a Spider-Man 3, and that's what they were following up. So I think it's a vast improvement of what went before in the last installment in the Maguire trilogy.
Agreed, definitely. And it's almost a pity that we can look back on it from so far in the future and just kind of know what becomes of it.
Yeah.
But that film inside of a vacuum was there's definitely worse films you could be stuck with. I know that.
Definitely. No, it's Andrew Garfield was unlucky. The timing, maybe he might be MCU's Spider-Man if he was a little bit younger because of the age they went with, or maybe the changes they went with, or because of the 5 movies, they had a lot of No, like the benefit of having 5 movies made about one singular character is that you have a lot of what to do, what not to do, and that's what Marvel has kind of benefited from. Whereas Sony, I, part two was kind of like an overreaction to certain elements of MCU movies that were kind of goofy, and they lean too heavily on it. Whereas Marvel balances them perfectly. Whereas you have the cheesiness and the corniness, but it never distracts away from the serious elements of the movie. Like so, I think part two was just an imbalanced movie. So like, but at the end of the day, this is a good movie. I would definitely recommend it. How about
absolutely
you,
recommend it, and we can all that goodwill outworld, because when we return to Dark Side of the Moon, we are going to talk about Spider-Man 2, and it's a pity, you know.
Yeah.
So we need to take these little chestnuts to get us through the cruel winter that is ahead.
See, this is what happens again. This is like such a proof that we're such nerds, because we get so down when we were talking about like doing Spider-Man 3, the end of Spider-Man 2, we're kind of getting a bit down, thinking about Spider-Man 3 next, and now we're like, oh, we're so happy this movie was actually a lot better than a lot of people think it is, and you're like, oh,
yeah, but Spider-Man 2, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
it's the hangover to the party we're currently having. You know what I mean? Like it's the harsh realization.
yeah, yeah, you know.
You know what? They give him a guy whose powers is to be electrifying, and they gave it to a dour Jamie Foxx. I don't know, man. And it's not like he doesn't come cheap. It just makes no sense.
But yeah, it's Sony like to kind of go for big names that sometimes don't often suit the roles they're cast in.
That's it, yeah. But their names all the same, yeah.
Yeah, like Tom Hardy as Venom.
All right, I think we should sign off.
Yeah, will we get the fuck out of here?
We'll get the fuck out of here. So, just I'm not sure how we do this. This is our first episode. So I'm going to say thanks very much for joining us on the Dark Side of the Moon. We shall return very shortly, maybe magically in a couple of seconds, depending on when you're listening. And we'll be with the Amazing Spider-Man 2. And we're sorry in advance. So I've been your host, Noel John Toohey. He's also been your host, not Noel John Toohey. Thanks for joining us, and peace out.
This is Dark Side of the Moon, where a couple of zeros talk about your favorite heroes.
Ooh, that's the first time I'm hearing it. I like it.
All right, folks. Noel, say
All
goodbye.
Right. Goodbye, folks. Thanks for joining us. Talk to you soon.